Dragon Ball Daily Gift Pack Chapter 101-120. 101. Beerus wakes up, Super Saiyan God. Hearing what Su Yi said, Sun Wukong showed a look of shock on his face. In his opinion, Su Yi's strength was no longer a terrifying existence that he could chase. And now, there is a person who is stronger than Su Yi's strength. No, it should be a god. How can this not shock him? I really can't imagine what kind of terrifying existence surpasses Big Brother Su Yi. Sun Wukong was amazed. In response, Su Yi smiled lightly and said, "It won't take long for your strength to reach this level." If the plot of the original book comes, Sun Wukong, the Hanging King, will gather the energy of several Saiyans when Beerus arrives to reach the realm of Chaosai_God Red in a short time. And this realm is equivalent to 60% of Binus' strength. Terms of combat power, the Red Sun Wukong, the super race god at that time, had the strength of about 6 Beijing. After all, the strength of Binus, who does not use destructive energy, is only about 10 Kyo. You must know that Sun Wukong's strength is only 1 in Kyoto and has not reached the level of the capital. Just a super race god Red has raised his strength to such an exaggerated level. It is conceivable that the title of Sun Wukong's Hanging King is simply well-deserved. Work hard. Sun Wukong immediately moved away from the earth. In response, Su Yi glanced at the unfinished field and the machine placed there, shook his head and laughed. It is conceivable that when Wukong comes back, I am afraid he will be scolded to death by Chi-Chi. After informing Goku that Binus was coming to Earth, Su Yi informed Vegeta and the others in turn, and then everyone started to practice hard. As for Su Yi himself, he is experimenting every day whether he can transform into Super Saiyan Blue on the basis of Super Saiyan IV, and he is not tired of it. The first month passed quickly, and Su Yi's transformation into Super Saiyan Blue's combat power has reached 3 Beijing. The second month also passed quickly. At this time, he was initially able to control the Super 4 and enter the realm of God for a short time. In this realm, his combat power is about 4.5 Beijing. Soon, in the third month, Su Yi had completed about 50% of this realm. He has initially been able to stabilize this state within half an hour without degrading. At this time, his combat power has surpassed that of Sun Wukong's super race god Red in the original book, reaching the strength of 7 Beijing. In other words, his strength at this time has reached 70% of the strength of Binus who does not use destructive energy. Not bad. It took 3 months to reach this point. Although I took advantage of the convenience of the time house, it was the result of my own practice. Su Yi was very satisfied with the results of her practice in the past 3 months. After careful calculation, there is at most a month before Binus will come to Earth. At this moment, Beerus should have woken up and dreamed of the Super Saiyan God. System, open the time-space tunnel. I want to go to the Dragon Ball GT world. Su Yi is going to go to the Dragon Ball GT world to see if the Super 4 plus 50% realm of God will control Super Saiyan 5 in that world. He didn't know. In short, he might find out after trying it. ... When Su Yi entered the time-space tunnel of the Dragon Ball GT world, at the same time, outside a certain exploding planet in the main time-space world universe. Although it's a bit unpleasant, the bright light of the planet's explosion is really fascinating. The person who spoke was Binus, the god of destruction in the 7th universe. At this time, he put his hands behind his back, looked at the exploding planet in front of him with a very indifferent expression and said a word. Don't you think it's a pity for that dinosaur meat just now? Beside Binus was his teacher and servant, the angel Weiss. He looked at Binus and asked. He, not only is it a pity. Binus chuckled lightly and paused for a moment. What do you mean? Weiss frowned. That's right, a powerful planet explosion that reminds me of the name of the guy in my dreams. That's the ultimate warrior that no one has ever seen, very powerful. Binus became excited. The master's name is. What's the name? Weiss was also interested. What is it? Binus tilted his head and seemed to have forgotten the name again. Super. It seems to be super something. He shook his head, thinking about it. Super Saiyan. Whis' eyes narrowed, and he immediately thought of the little guy on Earth that he had sensed a few months ago who had initially stepped into the realm of gods. He's a Saiyan, and he can transform into a Super Saiyan. So, after stepping into the realm of God, is he the god of Super Saiyans? Yes. Whis, how do you know it's the Super Saiyan god? When Binus heard Whis' uncertain voice, he immediately clapped his hands and called out excitedly, his name is the Super Saiyan god. However, since he is a god, then he is a god. It's really troublesome. What? There is no Super Saiyan god in the 7th universe. Whis replied. That's great, but this Super Saiyan god should have something to do with the Saiyans, right? Huh, it seems that the Saiyan planet Vegeta was destroyed by Frieza's hands. Binus thought for a moment and said. Destroy the planet before you wake up, as you ordered. Whis nodded. Oh, that's it. Well, it's true that they are very unpleasant to look at, especially King Vegeta. Well, I'm too lazy to pay attention to them. However, so the Saiyan race and planet Vegeta have disappeared. Is it? Binus yawned and waved his hands lazily. No, some Saiyans on other planets survived. Whis explained. Okay, but where the hell is this Super Saiyan god? Binus still wanted to know how strong the opponent in his dream was. At this time, Whis narrowed his eyes, guessing that the little guy on Earth might be the opponent in Lord Binus' dream. Thinking of this, he opened his mouth and said, if Lord Binus' dream is this Super Saiyan. In the words of the god of men, perhaps I know where he is. You know. Binus was stunned. Yes. Whis smiled and nodded. Where? Earth. The 4th one is delivered. 102. This is Super Saiyan 5. Chapter 5 for subscription. Dragon Ball GT World. At this time, there is an island on the Earth. Drink. Suyi transformed into Super Saiyan 4, and then suddenly raised his momentum, and soon the realm of God was blessed on Super Saiyan 4. At this time, his combat power was not only a simple double increase, but a 5-fold increase, and soon it was at least 20 times stronger than before. He didn't estimate his combat power, but Suyi understood that at most, his strength was just over 7 o'clock. Get stronger, get stronger, get stronger. Suyi roared angrily, and his aura exploded completely. Roar. As Suyi's momentum fully erupted, his body swelled up in a state of over 450% of the realm of the gods. After a while, not only did his body change again, but the body hair, 233, changed from red to almost half of white, and the fireworks rising all over his body slowly changed from the previous blue to silver white. What is this? Suyi glanced down at himself. At this time, his body swelled hugely, similar to the shape of a giant ape, but his body was much shorter than the height of the giant ape. In a careful sense, it looks like a humanoid ape. What a powerful force! Suyi was amazed, touched his face, and then pointed in the void. A mirror appeared in front of him. At this time, in the mirror, his hair grows to his buttocks, red and silver and white, which is obviously a very strange color combination, but in his opinion, it is so cool. Not only that, his appearance has undergone some changes. Unlike the handsome man before, now he looks like a giant ape. After taking a second look, Suyi found that his pupil on the left was red and the pupil on the right was silver. Is this my very own Super Saiyan 5? Suyi shook his tail. The end of the tail was silver and white, and the rest were red, which was no different from the red tail of Super Saiyan IV. At this time, his combat power in this state is close to 8 Beijing. No, this shouldn't be considered Super Saiyan 5, at most. Suyi whispered. It can only be regarded as a half body at most. No, I'm afraid it can't be regarded as a full body, it can only be regarded as an experimental body of Super Saiyan 5. He looked at his appearance again, maybe when the fireworks rising from his hair, tail and pupils turned silvery white, that would be the real Super Saiyan 5. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to what the fighting power of this Super Saiyan 5 will reach. Suyi grinned, very happy. Soon, he returned to his normal appearance, then took away the surrounding magic circle, and used teleportation to come to a nearby city to find a restaurant and start eating. The two worlds are the same anime, so the money is the same. Naturally, there is no such thing as a different currency for Suyi, and he can't afford to eat. After a meal, his stomach was full, but his wallet was deflated. Therefore, Suyi also returned to his own time and space world. As soon as he came back, Suyi felt a powerful thought sweeping the earth. This is a divine sense technique that only gods can possess. It seems that there was a god who scanned the earth just now. Suyi's face showed a dignified expression. There are good gods in the universe, and there will also be evil gods. As for the god of destruction, Binus, how can I say it? Could it be Binus, or Wes? Suyi thought about it. If it is one of the two, then it is obvious that the Saiyans on Earth have been noticed by them. In other words, the peeps from a few years ago were to destroy Wes or Binus in the realm of the gods. Thinking of this, Suyi smiled nonchalantly. His current strength is equivalent to 80% of Binus's. As long as he is a little more stable, it is even more likely that he will be tied with him after a while. Don't worry, don't worry. Before Weiss and Binus come to Earth, they should find some delicious food to fill their stomachs. Therefore, in a month, I must initially control the initial transformation of Super Saiyan V. Quote. Suyi's eyes narrowed, and now his imperfect state is equivalent to the fusion of Dragon Ball Super World and Dragon Ball GT. So, to a certain extent, he alone is actually equivalent to a super soldier after the fusion of Monkey King and Vegeta. The days that follow will inevitably be a bit boring. Suyi basically spends a month in the time house. After all, he has been practicing for several years. It is worth mentioning that the Super Saiyan 5, which is exclusive to him, has completed the initial transformation, and he can control it perfectly. This is very good news, but one thing is that this transformation can only last for 10 minutes. What can you do in 10 minutes? For an ordinary person, it may be time to squat on a cigarette and play with a mobile phone for a while. However, for Suyi, who transformed into this preliminary Super Saiyan 5 realm, he could easily beat Beerus, who did not use destructive energy, several times. In that state, I have the combat power of 12 Beijing. Just by initially controlling this transformation, I can have such a perverted strength. If I really reach the point of perfect control, how strong should I be at that time? Suyi laughed, although he could only transform for 10 minutes, but in these 10 minutes, Binus, the god of destruction, might not be able to make a few moves in his hands with full firepower. When Suyi left the customs, at the same time, on the planet where the Northern Realm King was. The King of the Northern Realm was looking at Beerus and Whis in horror, his body trembling uncontrollably. As for Wukong and a gorilla, the little ant was hiding and watching Beerus and Whis. Except for the curious look on Wukong's face. 5.3, the gorilla and the little ant were sweating coldly on their faces, and they couldn't be scared. Is that guy Beerus the god of destruction? After being curious for a while, Sun Wukong looked at Wes very solemnly. He remembered that a god Suyi had told him before would come to Earth. So, is this guy the god who is more powerful than him? In the mouth of Brother Suyi. Please, be quiet, it will be discovered. The little ant on the side was sweating profusely, and said in horror. I know. Sun Wukong smiled at the little ant, then stuck his head out and looked at Wes. The dignified expression on his face was a little heavier. 103. Goku vs. Beerus, Beerus shock. At this time, in the field, the king of the Northern Realm slowly said to Beerus, who was hiding behind Whis, Dear Beerus, it's been a long time, I welcome you to visit my planet. Long time no see, King of the Northern Realm. Beerus stood up from behind Whis and greeted him likewise. Sun Wukong stared, saw Beerus coming out, and said in surprise, That is Beerus, the god of destruction. At this moment, Beerus suddenly noticed Sun Wukong with his head sticking out and looked at him. The two looked at each other, and an inexplicable smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he whispered, Saiyan. Huh. Seeing that Beerus noticed Sun Wukong, the king of the northern realm changed his face and hurriedly stood in front of Beerus, smirking. Lord Beerus, I am preparing food for you now, look. Get out of the way. Beerus glanced at the northern realm king indifferently, and said coldly. Beerus is older. Just as the king of the north was about to speak, Beerus pointed a finger at him. In response to this, the king of the northern realm slowly stepped aside, and the cold sweat on his forehead was pouring down. You, come here. Beerus hooked his finger at Sun Wukong 25. Sun Wukong pointed to himself, then tilted his head and glanced at the little ant and the gorilla who had already escaped, then looked directly at Beerus, and said, Me. That's right, it's you, Saiyan. Beerus nodded. Sun Wukong scratched his head and walked out slowly. Seeing the king of the northern realm on the side giving him a wink, he smiled naively, jumped in front of Beerus, and bowed politely, Hello, bye Lord Ruth. Beerus rubbed his chin with his hand, looked at the Saiyan, and after a while, asked Whis, is this guy the Super Saiyan God? No. Whis smiled and shook his head. Super Saiyan God. When Sun Wukong heard these words, his eyes lit up in vain. He knew that Suyi had initially entered the realm of God. Perhaps. Is this Super Saiyan God brother Suyi? You know the Super Saiyan God. Beerus couldn't help asking when he saw Sun Wukong's eyes flashing. Should. No. Sun Wukong smiled naively. On your Earth, isn't it? Beerus rode. Whis told him that the Super Saiyan God is on Earth. If he hadn't come here to meet his old friend, he must have headed straight to Earth. Yes, Brother Suyi, his strength has initially entered the realm of God, very powerful. Sun Wukong's eyes showed admiration, and he was full of admiration. It's my ability that was taught by Brother Suyi. Oh. When Beerustin became interested, he glanced at Sun Wukong, nodded and said, I heard that you Saiyans can transform into Super Saiyans, so you can transform and let me see. Yes, Beerus-sama. Sun Wukong rolled his eyes, responded very quickly, and said, however, can I fight Beerus-sama? Goku. Hearing this, the king of the northern realm changed dramatically, and hurriedly scolded, Master Beerus's strength is unattainable, how can you fight against it? Yeah, but I really want to see how strong Suyi's brother is to say that it is not an opponent's existence. Sun Wukong scratched his head in distress. What a big idiot, he wants to see my power. Beerus shook his head and laughed, okay, then let you see my strength. Ahahaha, thank you Beerus-sama. Sun Wukong hurriedly bowed, then jumped aside, clenched his fists with both hands, and roared, drink. Seeing that Sun Wukong's momentum instantly improved, Beerus raised his brows. Lord Beerus, this is Super Saiyan 1. Quote. Sun Wukong rose golden fireworks all over his body, and his hair also turned golden yellow. Beerus was just a little surprised, waved it casually, and responded. Drink. This is Super Saiyan 2. Monkey King roared once again, and once again transformed into Super Saiyan 2. This strength is so-so. Beerus yawned without raising his eyelids. Ha ha ha, it sure is Beerus-sama. Drink. Sun Wukong laughed twice, roared for the last time, and at the same time transformed into Super Saiyan 3, which is currently his strongest state. When they were on Earth, Suyi had probably told them how to enter the realm of the gods, but it was a pity that Sun Wukong and Vegeta were temporarily out of control. It's interesting. Smiled when he saw Goku in Super Saiyan 3. A 400-fold increase is indeed impressive. However, in Beerus' eyes, he was still so weak. Well, your strength is not bad, then I will use a finger. Beerus stepped forward, his left hand behind his back, and his right hand only stretched out a finger, looking at Sun Wukong indifferently. Hearing Beerus' words, Monkey King said with indignation on his face, I will definitely use all my strength to force out your second finger, Lord Beerus. Drink. Sun Wukong roared, clenched his fists and rushed towards Beerus. Run away everyone. When the king of the northern realm saw the upcoming battle, he hurriedly ran towards the house on the side, and then half of his head leaked out to look at the field. Drink. Sun Wukong slammed his fist at Beerus, but he was easily dodged. Is that so? Beerus laughed. Look at my turtle Qigong wave. Sun Wukong roared in bursts, and instantly moved the turtle Qigong wave and released it. Boom. The explosion sounded continuously. The strength is good, no wonder he was able to kill Frieza. Soon, the smoke from the explosion dissipated, revealing the figure of Beerus. Goku, who was in Super Saiyan 3 state, nodded and said, Saiyans are indeed a very powerful race. It seems that they used to be. Neither know how to use their true power. Quote. Drink. Sun Wukong exploded again, and at this time, his whole body exploded with lightning crackling 733, and his combat power was stronger than before. Ah da 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 da. Call out. Sun Wukong rushed over, roared in anger, and punched and kicked Beerus. Beerus easily dealt with this with just one finger. Ha! Sun Wukong gets more excited the more he fights, the power of a punch is more surging than a punch. In the end, when he hit the 100th punch, his aura reached the peak, activated the strength of the king of the world, and punched Beerus. Boom! The power of this punch made Beerus, who was dealing with one finger, take a few steps back. Ooh! At this moment, Weiss, who was on the other side, stared with a surprised expression on his face. Ah da 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 da. Sun Wukong's offensive is getting more and more fierce, and Beerus, who only uses one finger, gradually finds himself a little powerless, and his heart is even more shocked. You know, the power he used has increased to nearly half of his strength. 10. How strong is Beerus? Half of Beijing's combat power. 10,000 trillion is equal to 1 capital, which is 10%. Half of it, that is, the combat power of 5 gigabytes, that is, the combat power of 5 trillion. And this Saiyan has reached this level of combat power that is close to the level of an ordinary god. How can Beerus not be shocked? 104. Beerus comes to Earth and sees Suyi for the first time. Terrible. Wukong is so powerful. The king of the northern realm on one side exclaimed, even though he knew that Lord Beerus didn't fight seriously, he could tell how terrifying Sun Wukong's fighting power was. Thank you for letting me know that the power of Saiyans is indeed powerful. It can be seen that the Super Saiyan God must also be very powerful. In the field, Beerus and Sun Wukong looked at each other, the former smiled, flew forward slowly, and said lightly, however, I have to let you understand a truth. That is, the god of destruction, but it is very scary. Boom. Beerus stretched out his hand and flicked Sun Wukong's forehead lightly, and then saw Wukong fly upside down. Ha! Sun Wukong exclaimed. Call out. Beerus flew behind Sun Wukong in an instant, raised his hand and stretched out a finger, lightly pressing it on his shoulder, as if a planet was pressing over. Sun Wukong instantly lost his fighting power and fell to the ground in a normal state, unconscious. Past. Goku. The king of the northern realm hurried over, followed by the gorilla and the little ant. Let's go, Whis. Go to Earth and show me how powerful that Super Saiyan God is. Beerus slowly landed from the air, with his hands behind his back, and said indifferently. Okay, Beerus-sama. Weiss came over with the staff, with a faint smile on his face, and then tapped the ground lightly with the staff in his hand. Rub. A dazzling light flashed for a moment, and then the two disappeared. ... At the same time, on a certain sea area of the earth, a yacht is slowly parading. Suyi is holding a banquet with Bulma and the others, because today is his wedding anniversary with Bulma and Akatsuki. You can eat whatever you want, you're welcome. Bulma and Mato Akira were greeting Kiki, Elu, Vegeta and the others, and their faces were full of happy expressions. At this moment, Vegeta suddenly heard a voice in her ear. Vegeta, I am the king of the northern realm tilde. Vegeta got up from the beach chair and said impatiently, what's the matter with me? Vegeta, listen to me quietly. Otherwise, the earth will be destroyed. The king of the northern realm said calmly. Speak. Vegeta was still impatient. Master Beerus, the god of destruction, is about to arrive on earth. You must tell Mr. Suyi not to be too aggressive. This master is very powerful, and remember to prepare some delicious food. The voice of the king of the northern realm came, and Vegeta, who was full of impatience, was stunned for a moment, then jumped up from the beach chair, and said in shock, You. What did you say? Who? Destruction god Beerus. Yes, it is the god of destruction Beerus-sama. The king of the northern realm said earnestly. In short, you must not provoke him, otherwise the consequences will be disastrous. I get it. Vegeta lowered her head, recalling in her mind that King Vegeta had entertained Beerus, the god of destruction, when he was a child. Moreover, in front of him, his father was trampled under the feet of Beerus, and despite the past so many years, he is still vivid in his mind. God of destruction, Beerus. Vegeta gritted her teeth. Time passed minute by minute, and several minutes had passed since the notification from the Northern Realm King. Vegeta came to one of the fences of the yacht with a worried face, thinking about how to deal with Beerus, the god of destruction. Call out. At this moment, a figure flashed past behind him. Huh. Vegeta nodded hurriedly, but there was no one behind her. Is it my delusion? Vegeta's eyes narrowed and she murmured in a low voice. Call out. At this time, another figure flashed away. Damn. Vegeta gritted her teeth and glanced around, but she still saw no one. As he cursed inwardly, a figure came quietly behind him, and a finger slowly approached him. Bang. Ah. Vegeta panicked for a while, and was frightened and quickly fled from the place. Ha ha ha. Beerus' laughter sounded, and Vegeta looked back, her expression suddenly changed. Bye, Beerus-sama. Vegeta was in a hurry and hurriedly bowed to Beerus respectfully. Prince Vegeta, I remember you. Beerus chuckled lightly and walked towards him slowly. Gudong. Vegeta swallowed several times as Beerus walked. Ah, Vegeta, are you here? At this time, Vegeta's wife Elu suddenly appeared, and when she saw Beerus, Whis and the others, she asked in surprise, who are these two gentlemen? Elu. Vegeta exclaimed. Huh. Elu responded strangely, seeing him sweating profusely, she couldn't help but feel even more strange. Just as she was about to speak, Whis smiled and said, Diaresis, this beautiful lady, we are Vegeta's friends, this time passing the earth, so I came to see him. Ah, welcome, warm welcome. When Elu heard this, she immediately laughed happily. Why doesn't this guy Vegeta know Elu's temperament? It's a blessing to have one friend. Now he has two friends. Elu was so happy. Thank you. Beerus turned his head, and Whis smiled and nodded in thanks. Today is our friend's wedding anniversary, so we held a party with a lot of delicious food. You are from an alien planet. You must have never tasted our planet's delicious food. Ha ha ha, come with me. Elu was very enthusiastic, and brought Beerus and Whis to the yacht and left the fence. As for Vegeta, she was sweating profusely as she watched the backs of Beerus and the others leaving, her legs softening for a while. After a while, he seemed to have thought of something, Wang Zhao's, and hurriedly ran towards the yacht center. At the same time, Suyi, who had just walked out of the training room in the yacht and came to the yacht center, was stunned when he saw Beerus and Weston on the small stage in the center. At the same time, Beerus and Whis also set their sights on him. Weiss is okay, his eyes are very peaceful, and the smile on his face is also very soft. As for Beerus, he stared at Suyi and narrowed his eyes. As a god of destruction, he has a strong perception of dangerous characters. In this seventh universe, there has never been someone who made him feel this way, but this time it appeared, which made him very dignified and shocked. Weiss. Yes, Beerus-sama. Weiss smiled. Is he the Super Saiyan God? Beerus asked in a low voice. Probably, yes. Weiss replied hesitantly. 105. Weiss's reminder, Beerus is cowardly. In terms of breath, Weiss can feel the power of Suyi. However, he couldn't be 100% sure that he was the Super Saiyan God in Beerus' dream. Are you the Suyi that Sun Wukong said? Beerus put his hands behind his back and looked at Su Yedao indifferently. Suyi also responded coldly, with his strength not afraid of Beerus at all. 10 minutes, he had suppressed Beerus' Tu Jing in combat power, and he could easily kill this terrifying god of destruction a dozen times back and forth. Seeing Suyi's gesture, Beerus narrowed his eyes. As for Weiss, he looked like he was watching a good show. For so many years, it was the first time he had seen someone in this 7th universe dare to be so indifferent to Beerus. Do you know who I am? Beerus' face became gloomy, and his tone was very unkind. God of destruction, Beerus. Suyi walked slowly, stretched out her hand to cover her mouth and yawned, very calm, pulled up a stool and sat down slowly. I am a very casual person. If you deal with a cold face, I will naturally be cold too. Face to deal with. Quote. If it wasn't for the scrutiny in Beerus' eyes and his icy attitude, Suyi wouldn't be so direct. Still the same sentence, if 977 is not stable, then beat it. Weiss is indeed stronger than him, but he knows that this angel is not a last resort, and he never dares to shoot. As the god of destruction, can't beat the people in the universe that you govern. Then, what qualifications do you have to be this god of destruction? Therefore, once the angels act favorably, even if their father is a great priest, I am afraid it will be useless. The momentum of the two of them was a little cold. Seeing this scene, Bulma and others understood. These two guys, where are Vegeta's friends? Obviously it's here to find fault. Hey, I don't care who you are, I tell you, if it's not a friend, please leave. If it is a friend, I Bulma will naturally serve you the best food in the world. Bulma stood up and looked at Beerus and Weiss coldly. Seeing that Bulma got angry, Suyi blinked. My dear, is this a husband and wife soldier in battle? Thinking of this, Suyi chuckled and shook his head, slowly getting up and coming to Bulma in an instant. As a man, you can't let your woman have any possibility of injury. This guy Beerus is very polite to the lady, CFCE, however, it doesn't mean that he is still very polite after being slightly irritated by him just now. Beerus-sama, is deliciousness more important, or face? Weiss laughed lightly and reminded in a low voice, this man looks very powerful in my eyes, you have to think about it clearly. Beerus stared, he thought that this guy Suyi was extremely dangerous, and now he was reminded by Weiss, he suddenly had a heart in his heart, and said in a low voice, is this guy really so powerful? Weiss smiled slightly, answered and came near Bulma, and gave a gentleman's salute very elegantly, beautiful lady, we are not enemies, please don't get me wrong. Hearing this, Bulma glanced suspiciously at Weiss, then at Beerus who turned his head to look elsewhere, and finally pulled his husband Suyi, and whispered, husband, what do you say? Suyi turned around, reached out and tapped her forehead, smiling, what else can I say? I ordered someone to prepare the most delicious food for Mr. Beerus and Mr. Weiss. Okay. Bulma laughed, then turned and left. Call. Seeing that there should be no more waves, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Weiss, who was on the side, saw Suyi turn his head, the two looked at each other, nodded and smiled in unison, as a greeting. Then Suyi glanced at Beerus, the guy kept staring at Suyi, the two looked at each other, he snorted and turned his head away. Yo, it's quite arrogant. Suyi laughed inwardly and shook his head. At this time, Vegeta ran over from one side, sweating profusely. Seeing that Beerus was not unhappy, he breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Suyi, this is Lord Beerus, this is. Vegeta trotted to Suyi and introduced him to him, but he was a little embarrassed when he introduced Weiss. Because he doesn't know Weiss. My name is Weiss, and I'm Beerus Sama's servant. Weiss smiled and said to Vegeta that Suyi knew his name. Although he was curious about how he knew his name, he did not ask. Mr. Suyi, come here, I have something very important to tell you. Vegeta glanced at Beerus with an indifferent expression, then pulled Suyi to the side. What? Suyi wondered. That is the god of destruction, Lord Beerus. His strength is very terrifying. If he disagrees, he may destroy the planet. If it makes him unhappy, be careful of our Earth. Vegeta announced in a low voice. Well, I see. After he finished speaking, Suyi nodded lightly. Huh, Mr. Suyi, you just understand. Vegeta breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Suyi didn't know that there was someone outside, and there was a sky outside the sky, and angered the disaster star Beerus, which would really bring bad luck to the whole Earth. Soon, one by one servants brought delicious food. Beerus and Weston stepped forward greedily, and then started to eat. As for Suyi, Bulma, Mato Akatsuki, and Leslie chatting on the side, there were 2 laughs from time to time, and the atmosphere was very harmonious for a while. Time passed by, and when everything that should be eaten and drink had been finished, Sun Wukong rushed back from the planet of the Northern Realm King. Brother Suyi, nothing happened, right? As soon as Sun Wukong came back, he glanced at Beerus with great trepidation, then walked quickly to Suyi's side and asked in a low voice. It's all right. Suyi smiled and said, Beerus is here to find the Super Saiyan God this time. Super Saiyan God. Sun Wukong was stunned for a moment, and then said, hasn't Big Brother Suyi already reached this realm long ago? Well, but you can get there very quickly too. Suyi smiled mysteriously. All in all, the kid Sun Wukong was seen by him since he was a child. What kind of benefits are there? He was naturally the first to think of this kid. This time, there is a chance to transform into a super race god Red, and he naturally wants to fight for Sun Wukong. So, he wasn't going to fight Beerus first. Huh, can I get to this state soon too? Sun Wukong's eyes widened, he pointed to himself in shock, and said in surprise. 106. Suyi also turned into Super Race God Red. Suyi nodded and didn't explain much. He expected that Beerus would soon come over and ask. Sure enough, within 5 minutes, Beerus and Whis walked over. That. Beerus put his hands behind his back, looked at Suyi and said, are you the Super Saiyan God? No. Suyi shook his head, pointed at Sun Wukong, and said, however, he can become the god of Super Saiyan tilde. He. Beerus glanced at Monkey King, and he was really impressed by this guy's Super Saiyan 3. However, how long would it take for him to become the Super Saiyan god and grow to the point where he could rival him? You don't think he can? Suyi smiled lightly, walked around, gathered Vegeta and the others together, and said, it's not actually the case, the Super Saiyan God is a very special realm. In fact, the transformation is actually very simple. It only needs 5 Saiyans with a heart of justice to inject energy into a Saiyan who also has a heart of justice to transform successfully. Huh. Everyone was stunned when they heard Suyi's words. Beerus glanced at Whis and found that his face was also a little surprised. Obviously, he didn't know this secret either. 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 5 of me. Vegeta, Son Gohan, Trunks, Son Wushan, plus Suyi himself, just made up 5. Come on, let Mr. Beerus see the power of the Super Saiyan God. Suyi laughed. Does Vegeta really have a heart for justice? At this time, Kalen suddenly waved his hand and complained. Swish swish. As soon as those words came out, everyone turned their attention to him. The last time he was manipulated by Babidi and led to demonization, they knew that this guy had an evil heart in his heart. Hey, how can you look at me like that? Vegeta was immediately unhappy, and why did he suspect that he did not have a righteous heart? Ha ha ha, alright, let's all stand around Wukong. Suyi laughed twice and asked everyone to stand up. Soon, 5 people stood around Sun Wukong hand in hand, led by Suyi, and soon each turned into a Super Saiyan. All 6 of them turned into Super Saiyans. This powerful aura made Krillin and others change color, especially Suyi's breath, which made Beerus almost exclaimed. He has seen the transformation of Sun Wukong in various stages, and he can also see the increase in his combat power in each stage. Now it seems that this Suyi's strength is indeed terrifyingly strong. Super Saiyan 1 alone has been raised to such a terrifying realm, so will the next Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3. Or even Super Saiyan 4. Thinking of this, Beerus looked solemnly on this man, and he found that he really couldn't see through this guy. At this time, a golden light burst out, and Sun Wukong slowly floated in the air. Kakarot, do you feel anything? Vegeta asked impatiently. Ah, if you say that, I've never been a god, so I don't know. Brother Suyi, can you feel the change in me? Sun Wukong replied Vegeta, and then asked Suyi, who had stepped into the realm of God a few months earlier. Well, your aura is much stronger than before. Also, Vegeta, you should be able to find that his aura is getting shallower, right? This is the realm of being close to a god, and humans cannot tell the aura of a god. Suyi organized the language and explained. As soon as these words came out, Vegeta and a few people felt it, and they were indeed surprised to find that as time passed, Sun Wukong's breath became more and more obscure, and it was not easy for people to perceive the breath. Soon, the 6 people floated towards the sky in unison. At this time, everyone can see the sky, and the sea has a dazzling golden light. Rub. The golden light continued to flicker, and soon a blue light flashed again. Everyone stared at the 6 people in the field, and Kaylin and the others had a look of anticipation on their faces. Looks like something is going to happen. Beerus and Whis floated in the air, and the two communicated. Yes, I have felt a breath from God. Weiss nodded, a look of surprise on his face. It's raining. At this time, it rained unexpectedly in the sky, which made Bulma and the girls exclaimed. Katakana middle dot flowers katakana middle dot. Huh, why are we getting hail here? Turtle Immortal and Oolong stood together, so they both exclaimed at the same time. Just then, the weather changed again, and it was snowing again. Suyi looked up at the sky. At this time, a dazzling golden light had descended on Sun Wukong, and then a red light burst out. Most people could not open their eyes at this moment, only Suyi, who had stepped into the realm of God, also Beerus and Whis can see. Sun Wukong's body is undergoing a qualitative change. A breath of God was exuding from his body. The dazzling red light slowly subsided, and when everyone thought that the transformation was about to end, a golden light that was even more dazzling than before shone down on the sky. 0. This time, it was not Sun Wukong, but Suyi. Not only Beerus and Whis were stunned, but the Piccolo people on the side were also stunned. What's the matter? Suyi was also very shocked and didn't understand why he was also illuminated by the golden light. Moreover, his body was also changing slowly. It was obviously golden light, but the surface of his body was covered with a red light film. Boo! Like the sound of the bottle cap being pulled open, the red light film on Suyi's body and Sun Wukong's body shattered in vain. Kaka! Rot! Vegeta and others returned to normal. Vegeta looked at Sun Wukong with an inexplicable look on his face, and whispered his Saiyan name. Is this the Super Saiyan God? Also, why are there 2 Super Saiyan gods born at the same time? Beerus' face was cloudy, very strange. Lord Beerus, as far as I know, Suyi has already stepped into the realm of God a few months ago. Weiss' eyes flashed and he said something. What? This guy stepped into the realm of the gods a few months ago. Beerus had a look of shock on his face. Then, after a few months, did this guy get a blessing and be promoted to a rank again? Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a strong sense of fear in his heart. 107. Suyi's power, Beerus' excitement. Just because of his previous strength, I heard that Weiss said that he is not an opponent. Now that he is promoted again, wouldn't he be even more an opponent? Weiss, who is this guy? Beerus frowned and asked. Logically speaking, such a powerful guy should not be famous, but he was sure that this was the first time he had seen and heard of such a guy. Lord Beerus, he's a Saiyan. Weiss replied. Hearing this, Beerus glanced at Weiss. Of course he also knew that Suyi was a Saiyan, but how can a Saiyan be so powerful? He can't believe it. Lord Beerus, there was also a powerful Saiyan in ancient times. Weiss smiled slightly. According to ancient books, that Saiyan is very powerful. I don't know how powerful it is. I only know that my father always respected him very much. What? Beerus was startled again. Of course he knew who Weiss's father was. Even the one who respects the Saiyan from ancient times, how powerful should he be? This guy may be a direct descendant of that powerful Saiyan in ancient times. Weiss laughed out loud. Boom. Two powerful auras erupted in the field, originating from Suyi and Sun Wukong. At this time, both of them had red hair and red eyes, their faces were slightly thinner than before, and their breath was obscure, making it unpredictable. Is this the Super Saiyan God? Vegeta looked at Sun Wukong with incomparably fiery eyes, and he really wanted to achieve this state. In other words, he wants to control a powerful force. What a powerful force! Sun Wukong clenched his fist, and after feeling it, he exclaimed. Well, the power is really pure. Suyi nodded. He also felt the power of this Super Race God Red. It was not as powerful as Super Race God Blue, but it seemed more pure. This is not the point is why he also turned into Super Saiyan Red. System, why did I also turn into Super Saiyan Red? Suyi asked in his heart. After a while of silence, the system did not reply. Obviously, it didn't know, and perhaps didn't want to tell him. Beerus and Weiss flew down from midair and came to Sun Wukong and Suyi. Beerus-sama, I kept you waiting. Sun Wukong shouted politely and bowed. You want to fight me again? Beerus saw Sun Wukong's plan and said lightly. Hopefully I can see a more powerful power than Lord Beerus. Sun Wukong looked at Beerus with full of fighting intent. Beerus glanced at Suyi, saw his expressionless face, pondered for a moment, nodded and agreed. Thank you Beerus-sama. Sun Wukong laughed excitedly, and flew into the sky. Beerus also raised his body slowly with his arms behind his back. The two looked at each other in the sky, and Beerus smiled. It seems that you are really eager to try. Then, let me see the power of the Super Saiyan God. As he spoke, he lowered his gaze and glanced at Suyi who was standing on the yacht. He also wanted to try this guy's strength. After all, except for the angel family, his strength belongs to the absolute top level. Invincible loneliness, he has experienced for many years. If he can try and fail this time, he is naturally very happy to feel it. Hearing Beerus' words, Sun Wukong made an attacking hand gesture with a confident smile on his face. He had never felt such a powerful force before, so he was confident that he could compete with Beerus, the god of destruction. Drink. Sun Wukong charged towards Beerus, but since it was the first time he had obtained such a powerful power, he rushed directly over Beerus. This power doesn't feel like my own body. Sun Wukong is unbelievably authentic. Huh. Beerus laughed, turned around slowly, and reached behind Sun Wukong who was still sighing at this moment, a finger stretched out and pressed down on his shoulder. Boom. Lord Beerus, you can't use the same move twice. Sun Wukong turned around and punched Beerus' finger with a smile. Not bad. Beerus nodded in appreciation and slowly backed away a short distance. Thank you Beerus-sama for your compliment. Sun Wukong's eyes narrowed, and he was completely serious. Drink. With a roar of Sun Wukong, the battle officially started. On the yacht, Suyi and the others looked up at the sky. Beerus and Sun Wukong were not equal to each other, and it was impossible to see who was stronger for the time being. This guy Kakarot. Vegeta gritted her teeth for a while, and roared in her heart, I must defeat this guy Beerus. How do you feel about Mr. Suyi? Weiss came to Suyi's side and asked softly. The red-haired and red-eyed Suyi glanced at Weiss and thought for a moment. Mr. Weiss asked about the battle between Beerus and Goku, or what it feels like for me to turn into Super Saiyan Red now. Super Race God Red. When Weiss heard this, he was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes lit up in vain, as if he had remembered something, and said, "So, I do remember that you can transform into a blue Super Saiyan God." "Yes." Suyi nodded and didn't hide it. Then he shouted. His powerful aura exploded completely, and saw a blue light burst out. His hair changed from red to blue, and the fireworks around him were blue and red, like a previous life. In the animation, the appearance of Sun Wukong's Super Saiyan blue state and then reopening the king's fist. In this state, his strength is infinitely close to 10 Jing, stronger than usual. He suspected that if he added a preliminary transformation of Super Saiyan 5 at this level, then his combat power must be 0.7 stronger than the previous 12 Beijing. He guessed for a moment, maybe it should be able to reach the combat power of 14 Beijing. This isn't your strongest fighting stance, is it? Weiss guessed. Suyi nodded, didn't say anything more, returned to normal. He looked up into the sky. At this time, he should have felt the power of Suyi. Beerus was unconsciously distracted during the battle, so he was pressed and beaten by Sun Wukong. This guy is very powerful. I really want to fight him once. Beerus' eyes were erratic, and the excitement of longing for a strong enemy rose from the depths of his heart. However, Sun Wukong in the state of Super Saiyan God is indeed a strong enemy, and Beerus immediately showed a little serious attitude and began to fight with Sun Wukong. 108. Suye vs. Beerus. Does Weiss know the 6 Veins Excalibur? Facts have proved how terrifying the combat power of Beerus is when he shows a little seriousness. Transformed into a Super Saiyan God, Sun Wukong, whose combat power has reached 6 Beijing, is still no match for Beerus. The battle started quickly and ended very quickly. According to the words in the original work, Sun Wukong can at least hold on for a while, but there is one more variable such as Suyi. Excited, Beerus, who is full of fighting spirit and wanted to compete with him, quickly dealt with Sun Wukong. Suyi, how about a fight between you and me? Back over the yacht, Beerus looked at Suyi with fiery eyes. Yes. Suyi nodded. He was going to fight Beerus without turning into a preliminary Super Saiyan 5. After all, with the red transformation of the previous Super Race God, his current strength is extremely close to 10 Beijing. Extremely close to 10 Jing is somewhat different from the combat strength of Beerus, who is only 10 Jing. But Suyi still has this confidence, he can at least remain undefeated. 22 Suyi turned into a Super Race God Blue, with red eyes. The fireworks around him were blue and red, and the breath was strong and strong, making Beerus' face even more excited. Come on, it's far from enough for us to fight, let's fight with me in the universe. Beerus burst out laughing, just about to fly out of space. However, Suyi shouted to stop him in time, and then spent 100,000 exchange points to exchange for a magic circle, which directly covered a radius of thousands of miles with a wave of his hand. Within a radius of thousands of miles, you and I are in the arena. Fight to your heart's content. I want to see your strongest strength. Suyi smiled slightly. It's amazing, this little guy should be the descendant of that ancient Saiyan. Otherwise, it would be impossible to come up with such a magical thing. Whis, who was on the side, felt the intensity of the space around him, and showed an expression of amazement. He had heard too many legends about that person from his father when he was a child, and now seeing all kinds of situations, his childhood memories suddenly emerged. Soon, Suyi and Beerus slowly ascended into the sky, and the entire yacht was protected by Whis. As long as the attack did not exceed his strength, it would all be ineffective. This point is similar to Suyi's magic circle effect in a sense. Please. Please. The two bowed to each other in midair, which is respect for the strong. Whether it is Suyi or Beerus, the strength is already in the top ranks of the 7th universe. This duel is not a duel of life and death, but a duel with the nature of sparring. The battle has officially started. Everyone on the yacht raised their heads one after another. This wonderful matchup is absolutely not to be missed. The two first confronted them with physical skills, and the speed was so fast that everyone on the yacht couldn't see it at all. It's too fast, even I can't watch the whole battle at this level. Sun Wukong shook his head. He turned into a super race god red, and his strength increased greatly. The power of the gods had entered his body, and his strength had reached at least 3 Beijing or even 3.5 Beijing's combat power. Now, with such a powerful strength, he still can't even see the specific collision movements of the two people in the sky. It is conceivable how high-end this level of collision is. When Vegeta heard what he said, she snorted coldly, found a seat and sat down. Since she couldn't see clearly, just wait for the battle to end. However, looking at him looking up from time to time, and the beads of sweat on his forehead, you can still see the restlessness and expectation in his heart at the moment. Sword come. At this time, in the sky, after the collision of physical skills, Suyi reached out and grabbed in the void, and a lightsaber glowing red and blue light condensed in his hand. 6-Pulse Divine Sword. This is what my father told me, that ancient Saiyan's unique trick, 6-Pulse Divine Sword. At this moment, Weiss on the yacht exclaimed when he saw the lightsaber condensed in Suyi's hand. Before, he only had a 50% guess, guessing that Suyi was the descendant of that ancient Saiyan. Now, when Suyi saw this unique trick unique to the ancient Saiyan appeared in Suyi's hands, he was 100% sure. This Suyi is the descendant of that one horrible race. Weiss' eyes were full of fear, and he was not a god. He had grown to the level of a god, and even surpassed that of a god. This Saiyan race is indeed terrifying. It is a pity that the rest of the Saiyans have been destroyed before. Otherwise, led by this man named Suyi, I am afraid that the first race of the 7th universe will be occupied by the Saiyan race. Not only that, but other universes are rarely able to compete with this race. Moreover, if he remembered correctly, the 6th universe seems to be a parallel universe with the 7th universe, belonging to the brother universe, so the 6th universe also has the race of Saiyans. Perhaps, there is a chance to tell Vados to take care of this race. Weiss' eyes flashed, and at this moment, a lot of thoughts rose up in his heart. In the sky, the battle is nearly over. The two seem to be evenly matched, but in fact, both sides understood that Suyi's strength was always weaker than Beerus. However, Beerus didn't think that Suyi's strength was that simple. Could give him a sense of danger could be inferior to his strength. I am very happy with this battle. Beerus stopped his hand, his momentum subsided, and smiled at Suyi. In this battle, he didn't win or lose, but he really fought heartily, and it couldn't be more fun. Suyi also had a smile on his face. This battle was also the most hardy battle he had ever fought, because basically, there were not enough people who appeared to fight him, let alone those who could fight with him. Have been. The two landed and returned to the yacht. Beerus-sama must be hungry, right? Weiss stepped forward and smiled. Hearing this, Beerus was stunned for a moment, and then saw Weiss's twinkling eyes, and suddenly he was stunned. Here, I have something to tell him. Well, I'm pretty hungry. Beerus nodded and smiled at Suyi. We and I will go back first, and we will visit again another day. Goodbye Mr. Suyi. Weiss held the staff a little on the ground, and saw the two of them turned into a golden light soaring into the sky, and finally disappeared from everyone's sight. 109. In the third stage, it will be the ultimate free will. After Beerus and Weiss left, however, with the interruption of Beerus, everyone didn't have much thought to continue the party for a while. Wukong, you are so powerful now, we have to practice hard. Piccolo and others also left one after another. No one wanted to be too far behind. They all prepared to practice hard, not to catch up with the pace of Sun Wukong, but not to be left too far. Vegeta snorted coldly, glanced at Sun Wukong, and left with Elu and Trunks. Soon, the Sun Wukong family and the Suyi family were left on the entire yacht. Wukong, your strength is already very strong now, but you can't expand, you still have to practice hard. Su Yi said. I understand. Sun Wukong naturally understands this truth. From childhood to adulthood, he heard the most admonition from Su Yi to him. Cultivation is like sailing against the current, if you don't advance, you will retreat. Okay, in a few days, you may be able to wait for the opportunity to let Weiss teach you the practice. Su Yi's eyes flashed and reminded, although Weiss is Beerus' servant, but in a sense, he is Beerus' teacher. If you follow him, you will definitely learn a lot. Huh. Hearing Su Yi's words, Sun Wukong's eyes widened. He thought Beerus was the most powerful person, but Su Yi told him that Weiss was Beerus' teacher. In that case, if you can really practice with Weiss, I am afraid that you will not only learn a lot of things, but also have more experience. This generation of teaching experience has been passed down, and they can also give their descendants a perfect tutorial, at least there is no worry in practice. But, I'm afraid it's a little difficult. Sun Wukong hesitated. Where did the existence of this level come from so much time to teach them? Beerus loves food, and Weiss loves food too. So, use the food on earth and let Weiss teach you diaresis tilde. Su Yi smiled. Good. Sun Wukong's eyes lit up. If it is really feasible, then his next strength will probably skyrocket even more. ... This is the end of Beerus' first visit to Earth. Not only Sun Wukong and the others began to practice, but Su Yi also practiced very hard. Soon, a week passed quickly. Sun Wukong and Vegeta obeyed Su Yi's instructions and used the food of the earth to make Weiss agree. The two naturally followed Weiss to the destruction god realm and began to practice. On this day, Su Yi entered the training room, and then let the system open the time-space tunnel and entered the world of Dragon Ball GT. It had been 2 months since he last entered. Entering this time, Su Yi asked how long ago the system was in the Dragon Ball GT world. The last time the host entered the world of Dragon Ball GT was 2 months and 3 days, and it has been half a year since the world of Dragon Ball GT. The system replied. Half a year. Su Yi thought about it. The last time he came to this world, Monkey King Vegeta could already transform into a Super Saiyan IV, and his strength was not even a little bit more terrifying than before. Now, half a year has passed, has it become stronger again? Thinking of this, Su Yi smiled and closed his eyes to search for Sun Wukong's breath. Soon, his breath was found on Baozi Mountain. Using teleportation to arrive, Su Yi found that Sun Wukong was not alone here, but was teaching Sun Wuxian and Xiaofang, the granddaughter of Wukong, how to control his qi. Yeah, brother Su Yi, you're here. When Sun Wukong saw Su Yi, he was used to his elusiveness, appearing for a while and then suddenly disappearing. Su Yi smiled and nodded. Sun Wukong has returned to his adult state. He looks the same as Wukong in the main time and space, but he looks a little older. But all in all, this is Goku enough. I'm here today to show you my Super Saiyan 5. Although it may not be suitable for your future transformation, it's always good to have a look. Su Yi opened his mouth and said, Saiyans in this world can't break through the realm of Super Saiyan, so naturally they can't learn Super Saiyan 5 that is exclusive to him. But if you look at it, it doesn't do any harm. Super Saiyan 5. Sun Wukong's eyes lit up. Since he was able to transform into Super Saiyan 4 proficiently, he is also thinking about whether he can go further and reach the realm of Super Saiyan 5. However, there is still too much difference, not to mention Super Saiyan 5, it is the realm of Super Saiyan 4 that surpassed Super Saiyan 4 in the previous Dragon Ball GT anime, and he has not been able to control it at present. Diaresis yes, Super Saiyan 5. Su Yi nodded, then roared, first transformed into Super Saiyan IV, and then blessed the realm of God, and finally silver-white fireworks flickered around him, and his eyes were also different from the previous one. Red, and one eye is silver-white. Now, both of his eyes are silver-white. Especially his long silver-white and red hair, silver-white and red hair and tail. At this point, there is only one single color, and that is silvery white. Now he is not the second stage of Super Saiyan 5, not the initial control of his exclusive Super Saiyan 5. All of this stemmed from the blessing of God in the main time and space world a week ago, which gave birth to the power of God in his body. If it weren't for the power of this God, Suyi might not be able to completely integrate the realm of Super Saiyan IV with the realm of God, Jiao of Jiao. It is even more impossible to reach the current state. In the second stage of Super Saiyan 5, the whole body is full of silver-white divine light. In other words, this is already a preliminary white god. However, different from the appearance of the Super 5 white gods in the anime of the previous life, Suyi is his own Super 5 white gods. The next stage of Super Saiyan 5 should be to completely control the realm of Super Saiyan 5. At that time, I will practice the realm of the gods to a higher level, that is, the freedom of extreme mind power. Suyi whispered, then looked up to see Sun Wukong, Sun Wuxian and Xiaofang looking at him with a demented look, which made him smile. This is my Super Saiyan 5. 110. The Resurrected Frieza, in time for revenge. Sun Wukong, Sun Wuxian and Xiaofang were stunned. If it wasn't for the fact that Suyi, the Super Saiyan 5, had actually appeared in front of them, I'm afraid they would never have believed that such a powerful character existed. It's too powerful. In front of you, Suyi, I can only feel my insignificance, and I don't dare to look at you at all. Sun Wukong smiled bitterly. This is not that he is bragging about Suyi, but that he does not dare to look at Suyi, let alone that he wants to gain valuable experience in Super Saiyan 5 by watching it. Huh, what's the matter? It shouldn't be. Suyi is a little strange. Although his current strength is very strong, Sun Wukong's strength is not too weak. Sun Wuxian and Xiaofang would feel this way. He felt a little normal, but if a powerful person like Sun Wukong would have this feeling, he felt a little abnormal. But this kind of feeling does exist, as if it was born and suppressed by blood. You are the king, and I am an ordinary person. Sun Wukong vividly compared it, which made Suyi frown. Could it be, his realm made him appear atavistic bloodline? Can he suppress the blood of the rest of the Saiyans? Thinking of this, Suyi asked in his heart, System, is what I thought just now really 763? In a sense, the host's bloodline is not an atavistic phenomenon. Because you are a bloodline of your own, and in terms of the purity of your bloodline, you are the ancestor of the Saiyans. Saiyans do bloodline suppression. It took a few seconds for the system to reply to Suyi. Hearing this reply, Suyi's eyes flashed, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. That being said, his idea was still right. Moreover, in this case, his future achievements are definitely not limited to ordinary Saiyans. Because he is the first ancestor and has the power of his own blood, not inherited from the blood of others. If this is the case, let's not say that he will not be suppressed by others, but say that his growth will change from limited to completely infinite. Very good, it seems to be determined to walk down this path and walk out of my own Saiyan way. Suyi showed a happy smile both on his face and in his heart. Goku, since that's the case, Super Saiyan 5 should need you to practice and transform yourself. Suyi opened the mouth and said, at this moment, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He remembered the advanced requirements of Super Saiyan 5 in the Dragon Ball fantasies in the previous life. In addition to his own strength, he must be familiar with his own emotions to be more powerful. From the point of Super Saiyan IV, it is inevitable to see how powerful a Saiyan who can perfectly control his emotions will be. Now that he thought of this, Suyi naturally told him what he knew about transforming into Super Saiyan 5. In a sense, Dragon Ball GT belongs to the Dragon Ball fandom world, so the setting of fandom Dragon Ball AF, he guesses, can also continue. Soon, after Sun Wukong digested what he said, Suyi was ready to leave. Brother Suyi, wait a minute, I have a question for you. Sun Wukong suddenly stopped Suyi. You said. Suyi is not in a hurry, since Sun Wukong has something to ask, he knows that he will naturally tell him. Brother Suyi, how strong is he in your time and space? Sun Wukong asked with a fiery gaze. Hee hee. Suyi laughed, understood what he was thinking about asking this question, and said, at this stage, he is stronger than you, so you need to practice harder. Good. Sun Wukong's eyes were full of fighting intent. In the future, it may be possible for you to meet and fight once. So, you understand what I mean. Before stepping into the space-time tunnel, CFFC, Suyi reminded again. Later, seeing the joyous look on Sun Wukong's face, he also smiled, and then walked into the time-space tunnel. ... Earth, Western capital, Suyi's home. It has been a month since Suyi returned from the Dragon Ball GT world last time. After estimating the time, he guessed that Frieza should be resurrected and planned to take revenge again. Suddenly, a breath was sensed by Suyi, which made a faint smile appear on the corner of his mouth. Oh. I just remembered you, but you're here. I really miss Frieza, Frieza. That's right, the breath that Suyi sensed was the resurrected Frieza, and a large group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals with good fighting power. This kind of scene may have been in the past, and it is definitely not something that Z warriors can solve. As for now, the times are progressing, and people are naturally progressing too. Not to mention Sun Wufan, who completely abandoned literature and martial arts. He was a Krillin who easily slaughtered Frieza's shrimp soldiers and crabs. In the original book, Frieza in this period is the Golden Frieza, and he is in a 50-50 stage with the Super Saiyan Blue Monkey King. Suyi recalled Frieza's strength, and I have to say that the fighting strength of this Dragon Ball Super section is really crumbling. There are too many complaints in the past life, and everyone can have a relationship with Super Saiyan Blue. But now in Suyi's view, animation is always animation, and now this is reality. The disparity in strength is too great, and unless the water is deliberately released, there is absolutely no hope of victory. Without thinking any more, Suyi teleported directly to a small island. After perceiving it for a while, he suddenly remembered, isn't this the place where Frieza came for revenge for the first time and was slaughtered by Trunks in the future world? This guy really picked a good place. Suyi shook his head and laughed. He had already seen the huge spaceship in front of him parked high in the sky, with a large group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals standing in midair. On the other side, in midair, Piccolo and the others looked at Frieza, who was being supported in the center, with extremely solemn expressions. Suyi dodged and arrived in front of everyone in an instant. Mr. Suyi. Suyi. Uncle Suyi. When Piccolo and the others saw Suyi's appearance, the dignified expression on their faces dissipated a lot. Obviously, apart from Monkey King and Vegeta, they were also their reassurance pills. Suyi is the biggest reassurance pill in everyone's mind. 111. The swollen Frieza, die in seconds. Oh. At this moment, Frieza in the sky smiled, looked at Suyi and the others, and said indifferently, they are all old acquaintances. Sun Wufan, and that Namekian, and you, Suyi. Frieza, you are really insane. Tilda. Suyi shook his head and laughed. The system told him just now that Golden Frieza's combat power was only 5 capitals. With the strength of 5 Jing, you feel that the world is invincible. In this regard, to be honest, he really wanted to laugh. Ha ha ha, do you think I'm still the Frieza I used to be? Frieza laughed, got up slowly from his flight seat, put his hands on his waist, looked at Suyi coldly, then raised his hand and stretched out a finger. Kill you scum, just one finger is enough. Quote. Oh. Suyi responded indifferently, then took a step and came to Frieza in an instant. Looking at him with a horrified expression on his face, he grinned, just say what I said just now. You. Frieza's expression changed, and she was about to step back. However, in front of Suyi, how could he retreat? Suyi stretched out his hand, directly pinched his neck, and slowly raised it. His voice was extremely cold. Just say what I said just now, and listen to it again. Frieza struggled to utter a word, sweat dripping down her face. Boom. Suyi's eyelids drooped, his hand shook slightly, and an energy cannon shot out from his palm. Frieza died on the spot without even a single scream. That's it. Suyi shook his head, a flame appeared in the palm of his hand, and burned Frieza's body directly. He tilted his head and glanced at the army of Frieza's men, and said indifferently, "Stupid things that think they are invincible in the world or not knowing the strength of the enemy makes you think you have won. To die is to pay the price for your own ignorance." Quote. After saying this, Suyi raised his hand and waved, and the sky-filled energy cannons fell from the sky like rain. Ah! While the killing was going on, screams kept ringing. Suyi was very indifferent, but Piccolo and the others were really frightened. This is all life. Uncle Suyi, your anger is a little heavy today. Suyi came, and Sun Wukong smiled bitterly. I can't stand the clamor of this crap. Suyi covered his mouth and yawned, saying lazily. Hearing his reply, everyone looked at each other with wry smiles on their faces. They thought that there would be a big war, but it turned out to be a simple massacre that couldn't be simpler. ... When Suyi and others left the island, at the same time, the Destruction God realm in the 7th universe. The Destruction God Elephant Pa and the Angel Vados from the 6th universe have arrived in Beerus' sacred tree. Vados, do you really think Beerus will agree to a friendly exchange game with us? Shangpa asked in a low voice. Lord Shangpa, according to the character of Lord Beerus, he should not agree. Vados covered his mouth and laughed. Damn it, the last Super Dragon Ball is left, why can't I find it? The Destruction God Elephant Pa of the 6th universe gritted his teeth for a while. As the twin brother of Beerus, he naturally liked food. He has already tasted the delicacies of the 6th universe, and now he has crossed over to the 7th universe to search for Super Dragon Balls, so that Super Dragon Balls will give him the most delicious food in the world. Vados smiled lightly and did not answer. At this moment, in the central area of the Divine Tree, in Beerus' palace. Wes, is that nasty guy here? Beerus in pajamas slowly got up from the bed with a look of indifference. Oh ho 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 oh tilde yes, Beerus-sama. Weiss covered his mouth and smiled happily. Huh. Beerus smiled coldly, stepped out, and a light burst out from his body. After the light dissipated, his pajamas had changed into his usual travel clothes. Notify Goku and Vegeta to come out to welcome guests. Beerus walked out of the palace slowly with his hands behind his back. Soon, Beerus and his party were directly blocking a road, and the God of Destruction and Vados of the 6th universe were walking slowly. Bangpa, what are you doing here with me? Beerus stepped forward and looked at Elephant Pa coldly. You can't control what I'm doing here. No, I'm here to discuss something with you. Shangpa first blurted out a sentence, then immediately remembered the purpose of his arrival, and hurriedly said, I want to have a competition between the 2 universes with you. Asking for flowers katakana middle dot katakana middle dot. Ha, ha ha ha, Shangpa, are you kidding me? Hearing Shangpa's words, Beerus' eyes widened, and then he hugged his stomach and laughed. What are you laughing at? Shangpa's face darkened instantly, and he said coldly, I tell you, Beerus. If I hadn't been able to find the last Super Dragon Ball hidden in your 7th universe, I wouldn't. Lord Elephant Pa. Vados on the side coughed twice, the staff in his hand tapped the ground lightly, and shouted Shangpa as a reminder. Oh. Weiss's eyes flashed, looking at his sister Vados, with an inexplicable smile on the corner of his mouth. Elephant Pa. Beerus' face suddenly turned gloomy, staring at the sweaty elephant, and said coldly, So, didn't you just come to my 7th universe? Yes, why not, if you don't believe me, ask Vados. Shangpa wiped the beads of sweat from his forehead, then shifted his eyes and said this sentence, from beginning to end, daring to look at Beerus at all. Huh. Beerus just smiled coldly, how could he not understand the temperament of this guy like Pa? He pondered for a moment, and said lightly, Tell me the real purpose of holding this competition. Don't play tricks on me. You know my character. Shangpa put a smile on his face and hurriedly said, this is very simple, that is, if our 6th universe wins, then you have to help me find the last Super Dragon Ball hidden in your 7th universe. What if you lose? Sun Wukong suddenly interjected. Swish swish. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the field immediately turned their attention to Sun Wukong. +1 gaze from Idol of Destruction. Gaze from Angel Vados +1. Even Vegeta, who was beside him, looked at Sun Wukong with a sad look. In this regard, Sun Wukong, whose emotional intelligence is severely injured, is stunned, and he does not know what happened to himself. Well said. What if your 6th universe loses? When Champa was about to get angry, Beerus burst out laughing. 112. The contest between the 6th universe and the 7th universe. Lose. When Champa heard this, he immediately grinned, glanced at Vados, and said to himself, "It is impossible to lose, you probably haven't seen the strength of my 6th universe." I said, "You lose, so what?" Beerus stretched out his hand, interrupted the confident elephant, and asked with a squinting smile. "My 6th universe lost, whatever you want." Cough cough. Just as Champa was about to put down his rhetoric, Vados coughed twice and reminded in a low voice, "Lord Champa, you can't talk too much." Huh. When Champa heard Vados' reminder sound, his eyes widened and he opened his mouth to say something, but he lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then raised his head and said solemnly, "If you win, the 6 superstars that I took great pains to find. How about Dragon Ball to you?" As soon as he said, 770s, Beerus' eyes flashed, and he turned his head to meet Wes, who was just looking at him, and then clapped his hands and smiled. "Okay. I hope you don't cry when you lose." Huh. Champa sneered, gave Vados a wink, and said, 3 days later, I will bring the 7 masters of the 6th universe to the 7th universe. Vados, let's go. Rub. As Vados tapped the ground with the staff in his hand, a light appeared on the 2 of them, and finally disappeared in place. 7 people. Beerus sneered, if it wasn't for a 1v1 duel, then Mr. Suyi would definitely be able to wear 7 in one go. Anyway, Champa, wait and cry. ... A day later, in the western capital of the earth, Suyi's home. Mr. Suyi, that's how things are, can you help suppress this guy's arrogance? Beerus asked Suyi politely. After all, as an existence whose strength can be compared with him, participating in such a small-level duel is really enough to lose his identity. However, he was still a little worried that this guy like Pa had really found a very powerful person, so he was ready to put the treasure on Suyi for the first time. The tournament. Suyi was indeed a little surprised when he heard the news. Frieza died not long ago, and a new plot is coming so soon. Yes, do you see if you can take a moment to participate? Beerus asked very sincerely. Beerus' attitude is very good, and since he didn't know each other before, to be honest, Suyi's sense of this guy is quite good. After thinking about it for a while, Suyi nodded and smiled. Okay, but I'll be the last one to play. If Wukong and the others are not opponents, I'll play again. He is familiar with the plot of the original book, and he naturally knows that this competition must be the victory of the 7th universe, but this is just an appetizer. The real dinner, that is the subsequent conference organized by the whole king, that is the real highlight. At the same time, the plot of Dragon Ball Super was almost over at that time. Naturally, Suyi doesn't know the follow-up plot, because when he traveled through the Dragon Ball world, the plot after Dragon Ball Super had not yet appeared. However, even if he didn't know the follow-up plot, Suyi didn't panic at all. He believes in his own strength and can grow up as soon as possible. King Quan's strength, in his opinion, does not lie in his combat power, but in his supreme status and the ability he controls. No problem at all. Hearing that Suyi agreed, Beerus was naturally very happy. I'll pick you up in 2 days. Okay. Suyi nodded. Beerus and Weiss left, while Suyi thought about it at home. In 2 days, he was going to beat Sun Wukong and the others. Now they should have been able to transform into the realm of Super Saiyan Blue, and their strength has increased by more than 1 grade compared to before. After making up his mind, Suyi naturally called Sun Wukong and the others to his house very quickly, and then opened a time room with 100 times the speed to them. 2 days were joined by 100 times, so that Sun Wukong, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Sun Wuhan spent 200 days of pleasant days. When the time arrived, Whis and Beerus came as promised, and took Suyi and the others to an unnamed planet in the 7th universe. At first glance, there is no one around, and even the air is very shallow. This is the edge of the 7th universe, surrounded by uninhabited planets. Weiss smiled and explained to Sun Wukong, who kept exclaiming, and the others. Then will the planet we compete on be equally shallow? Sun Wukong asked. This is naturally impossible. If there is no air, you can't breathe, let alone exert your own strength. I am afraid that it is very difficult to survive. Weiss laughed. Chatting, a group of people soon came to Wumingxingwai. Before it landed, Suyi saw at a glance that the planet was surrounded by many super dragon balls, which made people unable to help but keep casting their eyes away. These super dragon balls are so big. Krillin was amazed. When they were amazed, everyone had already fallen to the ground. Beerus, are these people the powerhouses in your 7th universe? The destruction god Elephant Paw of the 6th universe swaggered over. Vados followed behind him. His eyes were on Suyi, and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes, but she soon calmed down. Huh. Beerus didn't want to pay any attention to him at all, just smiled coldly, turned his head to Whis and said, Wes, let's build a competition arena. Then, let's get the spectator seats by the way. Hearing Beerus' words, Shangpa said the same thing to Vados next to him. Okay, Mr. Shangpa. Okay, Beerus-sama. Weiss and Vados each responded respectfully, and then raised their hands to face a point in the void, and a ripple appeared in front of them and slowly spread out around 4.9. After a while, a huge ring appeared in the open space not far away, and there were auditoriums on both sides, and photos of Beerus and Shangpa were hung high in the positions of their respective factions. Sir Beerus, what do you think? Weiss smiled and bowed. It's great, it's great. Beerus applauded in admiration, glanced at the elephant who was gritting his teeth in hatred to the side, snorted coldly, and brought Suyi and the others to the auditorium of the 7th universe to sit down. Next, for the first duel, please send someone from the God of Destruction from their respective universes to fight. Weiss and Vados acted as referees, and the voice rang in the ears of everyone in the field. 113. Crush. The shock brought by Super Saiyan Blue. I'm coming. A yellow-skinned bear in a red vest flew from the audience seat of Universe 6 to the ring, with his arms folded on his chest. His face was very confident, his eyes slowly swept over Suyi and the others, and the corners of his mouth twitched inadvertently. Disdainful arc. Suyi looked over and recognized him. Bodama, this guy's combat power is not of the type that stands out and is powerful, but his anti-strike ability is really strong. This is not difficult to see from the fact that Suyi's previous life animation is as powerful as Sun Wukong, and he can't hurt him even if he fights with him normally. Who are we here? Beerus glanced at Bodama and didn't pay much attention to it. In his opinion, the existence of this level was nothing but soy sauce. All come. Sun Wukong looked at Bodama in the ring with full of fighting intent. He was madly educated by Suyi in the time room for the past 2 days, and he couldn't bear it any longer. Now, after he said that, this guy got up and flew directly to the ring, and looked at Bodama on the stage, and both of them smiled. However, this Bodama smile seemed a little contemptuous. 25. Saiyans. Oh, I didn't think there were Saiyans in the 7th universe. Seeing that Sun Wukong was a Saiyan, Bodama became even more disdainful. In the 6th universe, the Saiyan race belongs to the general race, and the individual combat ability is some strong, some weak. In the eyes of people like Bodama who think they are strong, the Saiyan Sun Wukong naturally belongs to that kind of weak guy. Huh, are there Saiyans in your 6th universe too? Sun Wukong's eyes lit up. There are only so many Saiyans in the 7th universe. If there are Saiyans in the 6th universe, they can get to know them. Okay, there will be a posture in the ring. Come on, let me see how strong your Saiyans in the 7th universe are. Bodama no longer wanted to waste time, and hooked his finger at Sun Wukong. Okay, then you have to be careful. Sun Wukong roared, and he was in a normal burst of gas, and charged towards Bodama. Drink. The two collided and began to fight in close combat. Too weak, your strength. Bodama easily resisted Sun Wukong's attacks, and even had the heart to comment on his power. It seems that the people of the 6th universe are indeed quite powerful. Sun Wukong took a few steps back, suddenly shouted, and transformed into a Super Saiyan 1. Huh? What's the situation? Gabe, you Saiyans can still transform. At this point, off the field, everyone on the side of the 6th universe stared, saying that Saiyans can transform. They have never seen the Saiyan Gabe in the 6th universe. I don't know. Anyway, we haven't seen anyone who can transform, and this gentleman's strength has suddenly become stronger. Gabe scratched his head and looked at Sun Wukong, who was transformed into Super Saiyan 1, with the same wonder in his eyes. That's a Super Saiyan. After successfully transforming, he will gain 50 times the normal combat power. Vados, who was on the side, explained, this race is indeed powerful. As for your Saiyans in the 6th universe, they should also be able to transform successfully. Super Saiyan, 50-fold increase in combat power. The most important thing is that the Saiyans of our 6th universe can also transform. Hearing Vado's words, Gabe suddenly became excited. You know, no matter which world it is, there is a truth, the weak eat the strong. Strength is always the embodiment of status. Just like the Saiyans in their 6th universe, there are even many people who can't afford to eat. The biggest reason is that the race is not strong. If it is strong, how can it even be a problem for something as simple as eating? Lord Vados, do you know how to transform into a Super Saiyan? Gabe saw that Sun Wukong had gradually suppressed Bodama in the field, his eyes lit up, and he asked Vados on the side. When Vados heard the question, he glanced at him lightly and said, you need to understand this by yourself. I can help you the first time, but I can't help you the second time. Hearing this, Gabe fell silent and bowed respectfully to Vados. This is also true, if you are lucky enough to transform once, I am afraid it will be difficult to control the second time. So, it's better to realize it yourself. However, if he could comprehend on his own, after all these years, it would be time for him to break through the limit. Hey, when the time comes, ask the gentleman on the court. I hope he will tell me about my transformation skills for the sake of being a Saiyan. Gabe sighed in his heart, the desire for power is the nature of every Saiyan. Boom. At this moment, Bodama in the ring was directly blasted out of the ring by Sun Wukong, who transformed into a Super Saiyan. The first game, the 7th universe wins. The voices of Weiss and Vados rang in every ear in the arena. Beerus and Elephant Paw looked at each other, the former showed off his might, the latter gritted his teeth and turned back viciously. Who will play next game? I don't want to lose another game. Hearing this, the remaining few people looked at me, I looked at you, and after thinking for a long time, a guy who looked very similar to Frieza stood up. Oh hoo, you are all hesitating, then let me play. Frost smiled and walked out, then flew 007 to the ring. Ah, Frieza from Universe 6 has appeared. He should be a strong enemy. When Sun Wukong saw Frost, his eyes suddenly lit up, and his face also showed a solemn expression. In order to show respect, he even directly transformed into Super Race God Blue. What? At this time, the expression of Shangpa outside the field suddenly changed greatly. A Saiyan actually possesses the breath of God. Moreover, it seems that he has already initially entered the realm of God. Vados, am I misunderstanding? Shangpa turned his head to look at Vados and exclaimed. No, Master Shangpa, This Saiyan from the 7th universe has indeed stepped into the realm of God. Vados smiled and replied. My God. Shangpa was even more shocked, and his eyes suddenly turned to Beerus, who was looking at him from the side. Feeling his smug gaze, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. However, in the corner of the light, he glanced at someone on his side, and his heart suddenly calmed down a lot. Even if you have someone who has stepped into the realm of the gods, the strength of this guy on my side is not weak. HMPH, Beerus, how can I let you win? Shangpa sneered in his heart. 114. Push all the way. The power of the 7th universe. You did a good job just now, Saiyan from the 7th universe. Frost felt the breath of Sun Wukong, and a slightly shocked expression appeared on his face. However, he soon hid it and walked towards Sun Wukong with a smile. Sun Wukong was at a loss. Why didn't this guy play cards according to the routine? It's a great honor to play against a warrior like you. Hello, my name is Frost. I'm not the Frieza of the 6th universe as you say. Please give me more advice. Frost stretched out his hand and had a polite conversation with Sun Wukong. Oh. Sun Wukong blinked, then stretched out his hand and shook hands with Frost, with a smile on his face. Please point out. Before the word was spoken, Frost's face suddenly turned black, showing a gloomy color, and he suddenly exerted strength while holding Sun Wukong's hand. Oh hoo 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 hoo. Saiyans in Universe 7, your brains are indeed similar to those of Saiyans in Universe 6, what a pitiful idiot. Frost laughed, and an energy ball appeared on the other hand, which gradually grew larger, and then he slapped Sun Wukong with a slap. Boom. The bombardment hit Sun Wukong and directly blasted him out. In midair, the state of Sun Wukong's Super God Blue has become the norm. Oh hoo 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 hoo. Frost's loud laughter sounded in the field, and then he slowly walked towards Sun Wukong, who fell on the ring. Goku, this idiot. Outside the auditorium, Beerus reached out and patted his forehead, shook his head and scolded, expressing helplessness for Sun Wukong's carelessness. Is that the end of it? Kling and the others in the audience sighed. As for Vegeta, he folded his arms and looked at the field indifferently. If Sun Wukong really lost like this, he would not be worthy of being his opponent. Yeah, you really have the same temperament as Frieza. When Frost reached out to Sun Wukong and stretched out a finger, Sun Wukong, who had fallen to the ground, slowly rose from the ground, rubbing his head and looking at Frost speechlessly. Oh tilde. Frost smiled coldly, and a dazzling light appeared on his fingertips. Boom. A blast of energy blasted out. Ah, that's not okay. Sun Wukong shook his head and smiled, his casual gaze suddenly became serious. He tilted his head to avoid Frost's energy cannon, then roared, instantly transformed into Super Saigon Blue, and punched Frost out. Boom. With just one punch, this Frost from Universe 6 was blasted out of the ring. Such a rapid scene made everyone in the audience of Universe 6 outside the field stunned for a moment. What a powerful force. Especially Gabe, now his whole face is full of shock. He never thought that as a Saiyan, he could have such a powerful power. Be sure to learn how to become a Super Saiyan. Gabe's eyes are full of determination. If he learns how to transform, it will definitely be a very good thing for the Saiyan family in the 6th universe. Second game, the 7th universe wins. The voices of Weiss and Vados rang in everyone's ears. Oye! Kling, Oolong, Turtle Immortal, Kiki and Trunks, who were in the 7th universe auditorium, immediately shouted excitedly. Shangpa, are you a master of the 6th universe at this level? Beerus looked at Shangpa proudly, with a sarcastic smile on his face. His voice was deliberately spread out using the power of amplification, and everyone heard his words for a while. In this regard, Shangpa's face suddenly became gloomy, if it was not stipulated in advance, otherwise he would have to end the game and find his way back. Hit, I'll leave it to you next, others feel the same as if they didn't. Shangpa said something in a muffled voice. Sir Shangpa, they have to experience what they should have. If hit is your secret weapon, it must look like a secret weapon. Vados whispered something. Hearing this, Shangpa squinted at her, frowned and thought for a while, then looked at the little Gabe, who was also eager to try, and immediately waved his hand. Go, go. He really didn't expect these wastes at all. The most important thing was, how could he think that the Han Han Sun Wukong he saw in Beerus Destruction God Realm before was so powerful? The third game, the official start. When Gabe came to the court, the voices of Weiss and Vados sounded. Hello, Mr. Saiyan from Universe 7. Gabe gave Sun Wukong a very polite salute. Hello. When Sun Wukong saw Gabe, he immediately recognized him and knew that he was a Saiyan in the 6th universe. My purpose is not to fight you, but to ask you to give me some pointers on how to transform into a Super Saiyan. Gabe looked at Monkey King very sincerely. Diaresis, can none of your Saiyans in the 6th universe be transformed? Sun Wukong was stunned for a moment. According to reason, the Saiyans in the 7th universe have developed into the Super Saiyan transformation stage. The opposite brother universe does not even know how to transform into a Super Saiyan. No, if I hadn't come to participate in this competition this time, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known that our Saiyan family could actually transform. Gabe exclaimed. Well, then I'll tell you. But you have to fight me first. Sun Wukong wants to see how powerful the Saiyans in the 6th universe are. This. Gabe hesitated a bit. If Sun Wukong didn't transform, he still had some chances, but once he transformed, his combat power would be increased by 50 times, what would he use to resist? As if seeing the worry and hesitation in Gabe's heart, Sun Wukong returned to normal and smiled at him. Zhao Hao, come on, attack me. Seeing Sun Wukong returning to his normal state, Gabe bowed deeply to him, then raised his body and charged towards him. Drink. Gabe tried his best to fight against Sun Wukong. The latter seemed to be at ease and very calm. He commented on Gabe from time to time, and chatted with him along the way. At this moment, Su Yi, who was outside the arena, glanced at the ring lightly. This was originally what Vegeta did, but now it happened to Sun Wukong. There really is a butterfly effect. Boom. Just as Vegeta in the original book deliberately angered Gabe, Sun Wukong also deliberately angered Chunggong Gabe, and an amazing momentum burst out in the field. Gabe has transformed into Super Saiyan 1. 115. The ace hit of the 6th universe, Goku is in danger. Seeing Gabe's Super Saiyan 1, Sun Wukong's face showed excitement. Gabe, you are very powerful now. Thank you, Mr. Wukong. If it wasn't for your intentions, I would not have been able to transform into a success. Gabe's face was also excited, but he bowed to Sun Wukong very gratefully. Ha ha ha, no, come on, let's have a good fight. Sun Wukong laughed and transformed into Super Saiyan 1. His fighting power is also very terrifying. In Super Saiyan 1 state, he can actually defeat Gabe easily. However, he saw that Gabe was initially in control of the Super Saiyan, so he deliberately released water and gave this guy a free sparring. The talent of the Saiyan race is so powerful whether it is the 7th universe or the 6th universe. The two didn't fight for a while, but this guy Gabe has completely controlled the realm of Super Saiyan 1, more stable and stronger than before. A few minutes later, with a turtle Qigong wave from Sun Wukong, Gabe flew out of the ring just like that. The third game, the 7th universe wins. The voices of Weiss and Vados rang out. Ha ha ha. 613. Beerus couldn't hold back, and laughed wildly. Humph. Hit. It's your turn. Teach me a good lesson for this Saiyan from Universe 7. Quote. Shangpa didn't turn his attention to Beerus this time. Just hearing this guy's annoying voice was enough to be irritable, and seeing his hateful ugly face again, wouldn't it make him sick to death? Good. A man stood up from the audience and slowly flew towards the ring. The fourth game, the official start. The voices of Weiss and Vados sounded again. Su Yi in the audience narrowed his eyes. Needless to say, the strength of this guy, Hit, is indeed very powerful. He used the system to check the Hit's combat power, 8.8 Beijing. This strength is more than a little bit stronger for Wukong, who has only 8.2 Beijing combat power. This guy from the 6th universe is very powerful, and this one is enough for Goku to fight. Su Yi laughed, and the eyes of the people next to him became solemn when they heard his words. Can Su Yi say that he is a very powerful guy? Can he be an ordinary person? At this moment, even Vegeta couldn't help but look forward to it. CFBJ, come on with your greatest strength. On the field, Hit looked at Sun Wukong indifferently. Ah! Sun Wukong was stunned for a moment, not understanding what he meant when he said this. Huh! The corner of Hit's mouth twitched, and then he punched the air in such a bland manner. Boom! The 6th universe's Hit was obviously hitting the air, but Sun Wukong screamed in pain as he hugged his stomach as if he had been punched firmly. Say, bring out your most powerful strength. Otherwise, it's too boring. Hit's face remained unchanged, very calm and indifferent. This guy's speed is too fast. Outside the auditorium, Kaylin and the others stared and exclaimed. Except for Su Yi, who knew the inside story, Beerus and Weiss, Hit's shot just now, everyone else didn't see how he shot. Well, it's quite fast, and I can't see the trajectory of his shot at all. Vegeta frowned solemnly, but he hadn't seen the movement trajectory of the guy from Universe 6 just now. However, he felt that something was wrong. Even if a person's speed was fast enough, logically, there should be a trajectory of movement. And this guy has no trajectory. What the hell is going on here? Vegeta is really puzzled. Drink. At this time, Sun Wukong in the ring slammed the ring hard, then slowly stood up, and with his roar, he turned into a super race god blue. Huh, it seems serious. Seeing Goku, who had transformed into a super race god blue, Hit showed a faint smile, stepped forward, his figure wandered for a moment, and then threw a straight punch in front of him. Boom. Without reacting at all, Sun Wukong found himself being punched once again in the abdomen. Damn, this guy is so fast. Off the field, Piccolo gritted his teeth for a while. No, that's not the reason for the speed. Su Yi explained, this guy from the 6th universe uses a kind of kung fu called flash time. Flash time. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and all turned their attention to Su Yi. That's right, flash. Su Yi continued to explain with a smile on his face. The universe is huge, and there are all kinds of wonders. This flash is the time that some people can jump flash for a very short time. In abbreviated form, this is flash. But what the hell is this? On the other side, Kaylin asked aloud while listening to the fog. You can think that this 6th universe guy can skip a short period of time without being noticed. Su Yi thought for a while and said, the time for this flash is about 0.1 second. I still don't quite understand. On the other side, Keelan, Oolong, Vegeta, and Piccolo all expressed their opinions. Mr. Su Yi means that the person who controls flash kung fu is equivalent to being able to freeze other people's time for 1/10 of a second. Whis, who is also proficient in time control, suddenly spoke up. Yes, that's what Weiss said. Su Yi nodded. Scary. What a terrible ability. Piccolo was sweating profusely and cried out in shock. If he encounters such a person, he can't help but feel a big head. In the battle between masters, let alone Zero. The battle of Wukong is difficult. Beerus sighed and spoke. Wow, ha ha ha, Beerus, where did your arrogance go? At this time, Champa suddenly became complacent, flew directly from the auditorium of Universe 6, and made a face in front of Beerus. Huh. Beerus ignored him and just smiled coldly. Champa's 6th universe has ace players, but does his 7th universe have no ace players? Do you think you are already a winner? To this, Beerus just wanted to tell him, naive. However, the more proud he is now, the more swollen his face will be after being beaten. Beerus still understood this truth. Therefore, he resisted not telling the news that he also had the trump card, and was going to let this guy like Champa fuss for a while. 116. Suyi appeared, absolutely crushing. Crush. It is indeed ruthless crushing. In the animation of the previous life, Sun Wukong entered the game as a backup player, and he had some understanding of Hit's flash, and his fighting talent was a match for Hit. Now, he is the first to enter the field, because of reasons he does not understand, so this defeat is so irresistible. The fourth game, the sixth universe wins. As Sun Wukong was thrown out of the field by Hit, the voices of Weiss and Vados sounded in the field. Ha 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 ha, Beerus, your ace player is not as strong as my ace player in Universe 6. How is it? You're not angry. Shangpa, who returned to his position, immediately laughed when he saw that the game had been won. Oh, be proud. When Suyi enters the arena, you won't be too proud. Beerus turned his head and glanced at Shangpa, who was very arrogant, and smiled coldly in his heart. Vegeta, give Goku the super beans. Next game, I'll do it. Suyi said to Vegeta on the side. Okay. Vegeta hurriedly got up and flew to the ring, thinking in the eyes of others that he was going to continue to the next match. However, the eyes of everyone looking at the arena suddenly flashed, and Suyi's figure appeared on the ring inexplicably. The fifth game, the official start. Weiss and Vados announce the start of the fifth game. Use your greatest strength. Suyi put his hands behind his back and looked at Hyder indifferently. Oh. Hit raised his brows, not understanding why this guy from Universe 7 was so confident. However, since this guy is so confident, Hit said that he naturally had to blow his self-confidence. Raising his hand, he was about to punch out, but his body froze in vain. Boom. Hit was inexplicably punched in the abdomen and fell directly to the ground. Flash time. Suyi, he actually used the skill of flash time. On this side of Universe 6 on the stage, the expression of Shangpa, who was smiling all over his face, gradually solidified. Flash is not Hit's exclusive skill. This guy from the 7th universe can also do this kind of kung fu. Friends of the 6th universe, are you alright? Suyi stepped out, but at this moment, several afterimages appeared, and finally several afterimages were combined into one, and then formed his figure. But the difference is that at this time he has come to Hit and looked at him condescendingly. Cough cough. Hit squatted and looked up at Suyi, his eyes full of shock. The flash time was born to him, and Suyi's flash time was definitely not innate, but he might have learned his flash power stealthily. Because, no matter which universe it is in, the power of Sheshi can only be possessed by people of their own family. Do you want me to take you down, or do you go down obediently? Hit's stubborn stare made Suyi shake his head and chuckle. This guy's only powerful ability is the ability to flash, and facing him who also has flash, he is naturally powerless and has no resistance at all. Speaking of why he also has the ability to flash time, it is not that he has mastered this ability himself, but that he has copied this ability for a short time. That's right, he has the ability to temporarily replicate the abilities of others. This is a perverted ability obtained by a diamond-level gift package he gave out a few days ago. Even if it is destructive energy, as long as Beerus releases it, Suyi can steal your hand in seconds. He was under his control for a short period of time. Hit didn't speak, and looked at Suyi unwillingly. If he is the first shot, Hit said there is definitely still a chance. Suyi looked at this guy, the corner of his mouth curled up, reached out and took out a super fairy bean, and said lightly, I know what you are thinking at the moment, eat this super fairy bean, how about I let you shoot first? Hearing this, Hit's face changed, and then the cloudy weather became uncertain. He was hesitating, and even more moved. Hit, what are you hesitating about? At this time, the elephant in the audience roared. Hearing Shangpa's roar, Hyder gritted his teeth, reached out and took the super fairy bean from Suyi's hand and put it into his mouth to eat. In such a scene, he naturally wouldn't believe that Suyi's words were false, so he didn't hesitate at all. Soon, Hit, who ate the super fairy bean, recovered. Go ahead. Suyi stepped back, then smiled and looked at Hyder. He was so confident that he even felt that once hit him, he could easily complete the counterattack. Right, at present, Suyi's strength in transforming into an ordinary Super Saiyan Blue has completely reached the combat power of 10 Beijing. Facing a hit with a combat power of 8.8 Beijing, he can easily defeat him without spending a little bit of effort. Katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. You must know that at this level, the combat power of 0.1 Beijing is less, and that is a comparison between the sky and the underground. Not to mention, Suyi has a combat power of 1.2 Beijing. Hit stood up from the ground, raised his hand and punched it out. At the same time, he used the ability of Flash to freeze Suyi's time for 0.1 seconds. Boom! Suyi's body swayed, and Hit's punch hit him firmly. Oh, you will pay the price, arrogant fellow. On the side of the 6th Universe Auditorium, seeing Suyi being punched by Hit, a cold smile appeared on Shankpa's face. Beerus, is this your trump card? Ha, it's just an arrogant guy. I thought how powerful. 0. Shankpa couldn't hold back, and showed off his presence again. Beerus glanced at him and chose to ignore it. He is very confident in Suyi's strength, knowing that he will never be defeated by this 6th universe person. At this time, on the field, Hit looked at Suyi in shock. It was the first time he had seen someone who could withstand his punches. How strong is your physical resistance? Hit punched again, and found that Suyi just shook his body. Other than that, there was nothing at all, which made Hit, who knew his own strength very well, not shocked. Let you see what real power is. After Suyi finished speaking, he clenched his fists with both hands and roared, and silver-white flames swirled and danced around him. He has not transformed into a Super Saiyan, neither his body nor his appearance has changed from the usual one. The only thing that has changed is the silver-white radiant airflow circling and dancing around him, as well as the pair of silver-white pupils. Feeling this breath, Beerus, Shankpa and Vados, who were sitting in the audience seats of Universe 6 and Universe 7, all got up from their seats and squinted at Suyi in the arena. Vados, did this guy have initial contact with that realm? Beerus and Shankpa were in their respective areas and asked in unison at the same time. Yes, Lord Beerus, Elephant Paw. Weiss and Vados also responded in unison. 117. The tournament is over, the king of all is here. Yes, Lord Beerus, Elephant Paw. The voices of Weiss and Vados rang in the ears of Beerus and Elephant, making their hearts skip a beat. This realm is a realm that many gods have never set foot on. And this Saiyan, who has already come into contact with this realm, how powerful is his strength and potential? Beerus knew that Suyi's strength was strong, so it was reasonable for him to initially come into contact with the realm of Zizai Jigong. And like Pa, the god of destruction in the 6th universe, it was inevitable that he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. As a god, he was surpassed by a Saiyan monkey, which made him feel aggrieved and very uncomfortable. This guy Suyi is really unpredictable. In the 7th universe, Beerus looked at Suyi dignifiedly several times, and couldn't help but exclaimed in amazement. Lord Beerus, Suyi should be the descendant of the ancient Saiyan from 213. Weiss suddenly spoke up. Is it related? Beerus was stunned, but didn't react immediately. If I guessed correctly, that ancient Saiyan was the founder of Zizai Jigong. Weiss smiled and said, so, as a descendant of that lord, Suyi may have some tricks that make him more relaxed and at ease. What? Beerus was completely shocked. He thought that Zizai Jigong was created by Weiss's father, the great priest, but he didn't expect it to be created by a Saiyan. But this is just my conjecture. After all, I heard my father say that his master of freedom was taught to him by this lord. Whis spit out the shocking secret again, making Beerus' eyes almost fall off, which is too scary. The potential of a Saiyan can be so terrifying. Who can believe it? Who could have imagined that? Is this the race of the gods? Beerus really smiled bitterly. From the days when Sun Wukong and Vegeta were practicing in the Destruction God realm, he had already seen the horror of the Saiyan race. Unexpectedly, in the ancient times, the leader of this race was even more perverted. No, the birth of the race of gods is the pinnacle, and the potential has been finalized. The Saiyan race, born means unlimited potential. Of course, it varies from person to person. Weiss said lightly, as a member of the angel family, he naturally understands this better. His strength of 15 Beijing has long been stuck for many years. Compared with the potential of the angel family, the potential of these Saiyans who have been growing is really unlimited. Beerus fell silent and looked towards the field. The strength of Su Yi, who was initially exposed to Zizai Ji Gong, was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Don't underestimate the difference of one capital. Beerus of 10 capitals is full of firepower. I am afraid that Su Yi will not be able to make a few moves at this time. There is no suspense at all. Hit of the 6th universe is defeated. 7th universe victory in Game 5. The voices of Weiss and Vados sounded in the field, and for a while, no one in the 6th universe said a word. Failed. Elephant Paw clenched his teeth, his face full of unwillingness. It wasn't just that he lost the game, lost 6 Super Dragon Balls. It was also because he lost to this guy Beerus, which made him really unhappy. At this point, the game is over. Hit glanced at Su Yi on the ring, clenched his teeth, and flew to the audience seat on the 6th universe side. I don't want the shuttle cube, let me go. Hit said indifferently, there is no respect for a god of destruction at all. Sitting in the auditorium, Shangpa narrowed his eyes, raised his hands slowly, and said coldly, "You're pretty good at joking, Hit." "Oh, I guessed it right." Hit smiled indifferently and clenched his fists coldly. The atmosphere froze at this moment, and the battle seemed to be about to break out. "I thought you were strong, but you're still a waste." Shangpa's palm slowly condensed a ball of light, and said coldly. Seeing that the battle was about to take place, Gabe, a Saiyan from the 6th universe, hurried out and said, "Master Shangpa, please let Hitter go." "You too, scumbag!" Shangpa roared, and the ball of light in his hand aimed at Gabe. Ah! Gabe was taken aback by surprise. He subconsciously took a few steps back, and looked at the angry elephant with sweat profusely. "You guys, you've lost all my face. Oh, what's the value of living in this world?" Shangpa's gloomy eyes glanced at Bodama and Frost on the side. As for the others who didn't take action, he ignored them and roared, "I will destroy you all." Su Yi, who had just returned to the auditorium of Universe 7, suddenly narrowed his eyes and turned his head to look at the auditorium of Universe 6. "Su Yi, the incident is over, don't worry about it in the future." Beerus said lightly. "That's not the problem is that there are big guys coming." Su Yi glanced at Beerus. If he remembered correctly, the ruler of all universes, King Quan is coming. Hearing Su Yi's words, Beerus was slightly taken aback. "Yes, Lord Beerus, Lord Quanwang, coming soon." Weiss, who was on the side, glanced at Su Yi strangely, wondering how he knew. However, he still reminded Beerus. "What? Quanwang?" When Beerus heard the name, his eyes widened. At the same time, the 6th universe auditorium is here. Vados stretched out his finger and pointed to the ring, and said lightly, "Lord Shangpa, look." "What?" Shangpa turned his head and looked in the direction of Vados' fingers. When he saw 2 tall men and a small one standing on the ring, his eyes suddenly stared. "Lord Beerus." On the side of the 7th universe auditorium, Weiss pointed to the ring. Beerus also looked over. His face changed suddenly, and exclaimed, "My God." 1.7. So, Is it really okay for us to sit at a high place and look down? Weiss said with a smile. Yes, yes, yes. Beerus hurriedly got up and flew down towards the arena in the arena, and the elephant pagoda in the audience seat on the other side of Universe 6 also flew down in a panic. Suyi in the audience looked at the other gods of the two universes and flew down in panic, his eyes narrowed. King of all. Whether it is voice or body shape, it is just like a child's feeling, but such a childlike person is the controller of the 12 universes of the Dragon Ball world, and controls the life and death of countless creatures. 118. Who is Suyi? Why is the status so noble? Warmly welcome King Quan to come. At this time, Beerus and Shangpa, who had already flown to the ring first, bowed deeply to King Quan and called them very respectful. Hem. King Quan responded swiftly, with a faint smile on his face. Greetings from a long time, Lord Quanwang. Whis held his staff and greeted him with a smile. As a family of angels, he was not as respected and panicked as Beerus and the god of destruction like Pa. Hem. King Quan still maintained that crisp response. You are all right. Vados looked at King Quan with a smile on his face. Hem. King Quan responded, and suddenly, a breath entered his perception, causing him to turn his head and take a look. At the same time, Suyi flew down from the auditorium with everyone from Universe 7. In midair, he was stunned when he saw King Quan set his eyes on him. Long time no see. Long time no see. What surprised everyone even more, the dignified Quanwang waved his small hand at Suyi and shouted excitedly. Swish swish. The guard beside King Quan saw Suyi, with a shocked expression on his face, and then his straight body bent a little in vain, and his head was slightly lowered. 25. Seeing these two full king guards being so respectful, Weiss and Vados looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. Shocking. Others may not know the strength of these two guards, but the two of them know. So far, the strength of these two bodyguards ranks among the top 15 terrifying existences in the entire universe. How can Weiss and Vados not be shocked by being able to make such a respectful gesture from the top 15 horrors in a large universe? Brother Suyi, is that kid greeting you? Soon, Suyi and his party flew down from the sky. Sun Wukong saw King Quan's very excited appearance and couldn't help but ask a question. Hearing that Sun Wukong actually called the noble King Quan Wang a child, his face suddenly changed. Beerus hurriedly raised his body, arrived in front of Sun Wukong in the blink of an eye, raised his hand and slapped him on the head. Ow, Lord Beerus, why are you hitting me? Sun Wukong was in pain, stretched out his hands to cover his head with a dazed face, and didn't understand why Beerus suddenly attacked him. However, Beerus didn't have time to pay attention to his words, and hurriedly bowed to King Quan again. King Quan, don't care, this guy doesn't know you, if there is any offense, please don't blame him. Huh, Beerus-sama. Sun Wukong's eyes widened, just as he was about to say something. Beerus turned his head and stared at him with incomparably cold eyes, scolding, shut up. Seeing that Beerus was completely angry, Sun Wukong shrank his neck, as if he had noticed something, and immediately covered his mouth and stopped talking. However, being very curious, he leaned over to Suyi and couldn't help but whispered, Brother Suyi, who the hell is he? Because King Quan greeted Suyi just now, Sun Wukong felt that this child should be someone Suyi knew. He is the king of all. There are 12 small universes in the whole big universe, and the king of all is the master of these 12 small universes. Suyi explained, and before Sun Wukong was shocked, King Quan jumped up to Suyi. Long time no see, long time no see, have you forgotten me? King Quan jumped up, his face full of excitement, and he waved his small hand at Suyi. In this regard, Suyi was indeed quite astonished, and did not know where he had intersected with this Quanwang. Not to mention, this King Quan has a very friendly attitude towards him. This kind of relationship is like he is this little guy's friend. For a while, to be honest, Suyi didn't know how to respond. It's really embarrassing if you say you should come down and forcibly talk to you. Because he really has no impression, he doesn't remember having contact with King Quan at all. But this shouldn't be said, wouldn't that embarrass King Quan again? At this stage, his strength can be compared to the god of destruction, and he may be comparable to the two angels Wes or Vados after a period of cultivation. But the master above, he is indeed impossible to be an opponent for the time being. After all, even in the plot of the original book itself, it is not revealed how much the great priest and the combat effectiveness of the two personal guards, King Quan, are. Yeah, you don't even remember me. Seeing Suyi's slightly dazed expression, King Quan suddenly lost his mind, and then looked at Suyi several times, and found that he did not recognize the wrong person. Damn it, I forgot to ask your name before. Ah, it's so annoying. King Quan's crisp little boy's voice sounded, coupled with the depressed look on his face. It was really cute enough in Suyi's eyes for a while. I only know that you are the king of all. Suyi coughed twice and finally spoke. King Quan, but you used to call me Ah Quan. King Quan widened his eyes and said disappointedly, it's so sad, we are obviously such good friends. Boom. As soon as King Quan came out, Beerus and Champa fell to the ground in shock. Especially the destruction god Elephant Paw of the sixth universe, the whole person's head was a little dazed at this time. You know, he had resentment towards Suyi before, and even had the idea of obliterating this hateful Saiyan. Now, how dare he come up with this idea? Weiss, who is this? Who is this? The brilliance in the beautiful eyes of Vados is repeated. She has seen too many powerful people, but it is the first time she has seen someone who can make King Quan call a friend. Sister, I said I'm not too sure, do you believe it? 833. Weiss smiled bitterly, his eyes flashed suddenly, and he said in amazement, this gentleman, I always thought he was the descendant of the legendary Saiyan ancestor in ancient times, in case. When Weiss said this, he suddenly covered his mouth and didn't dare to continue. Vados's eyes narrowed, and Weiss didn't say what he said next, but she didn't understand how. Just in case. Now this gentleman is the legendary figure, doesn't that explain the current situation? But, he is too weak right now. Weiss soon discovered something was wrong, even though Suyi's current strength was comparable to that of a god of destruction level powerhouse. However, compared with the strong men of their angel family, they are still too weak. A terrifying existence that can make their fathers respectful, it makes no sense that even they are not opponents, right? I don't understand, in short, we can't speculate anymore. Vados reminded, no more words. They just need to understand that no matter who Suyi is, it is definitely not something they can provoke at will. 119. King Quan is going to hold a competition, a crisis from the future. Suyi was really helpless about King Quan's attitude towards him. In the end, he could only use his temporary loss of memory as an excuse, which made the little guy King Quan stop being so affectionate. However, the little guy looked at Suyi with a very kind look. Beerus, Elephant Paw. King Jaeon suddenly turned around and stared blankly at Beerus and Elephant Paw, who were sweating profusely. Yes, King Quan, what are your orders? When Beerus and Champa heard King Quan calling them, the two powerful gods of destruction shuddered and responded stiffly. Don't be so nervous. King Quan must have seen Suyi, and his mood was much better than usual, with a smile on his face. Today, I want to remind you. But when I looked at it, I found that there were calls coming and going. It was fun, really super fun. Quote. As he spoke, King Quan happily clapped his hands and jumped. Yes. Beerus and Champa glanced at each other, then bowed respectfully. I hope to see a very good-looking fight scene again, so next time, it's better to gather the masters from all over the universe to compete for a wonderful duel. The king was excited. Huh. When they heard King Quan's words, everyone glared. Really? Ha ha ha, I think this proposal is really great. When everyone wondered why King Quan wanted to hold this competition, Sun Wukong suddenly roared excitedly. Swish swish. At this moment, all eyes shifted to Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong. Beerus was so frightened by the sudden interjection of Sun Wukong that his legs were a little weak. He turned around and glared at Sun Wukong, and said coldly, "Hurry up and shut up. Don't you understand the truth that disaster comes from your mouth?" As he spoke, Beerus kept giving Sun Wukong a wink, hoping that he would be smarter and shut up immediately, otherwise there is a real possibility of disaster. However, with Sun Wukong's emotional intelligence, he understood so much. Seeing Beerus winking and blinking, he scratched his head and said, "Lord Beerus, have your eyes got sand? Ah, do you want me to give it to you? Foo. Ha ha ha, it was me when Kiki's eyes got into the sand before. Tilda. Shut up." Beerus saw King Quan, who slowly turned around again, with a look of horror on his face, panicked, and hurriedly fell to his knees, trembling, and said in a panic, "King Quan, don't worry about it. I can expel this ignorant Saiyan from the 7th universe." Beerus. King Quan's crisp voice was slightly muffled. Beerus' body trembled uncontrollably, and even his voice trembled. "Who is he?" King Quan pointed to Sun Wukong and asked with a wink. Beerus slowly raised his head and looked in the direction of King Quan's finger. "Isn't the person pointing at Sun Wukong? He is Sun Wukong, the Saiyan of the 7th universe." Beerus replied. "Saiyan, Sun Wukong." King Quan's eyes lit up, and suddenly he turned his gaze on Suyi again. "Is he the Sun Wukong you said? Ha, he is indeed an interesting guy. Ah, forget that you lost your memory, and forgot what you told me before." King Quan scratched his head, an embarrassed smile appeared on his face. Beerus, who was kneeling on the ground, glared his eyes, and his eyeballs almost fell. At this moment, a huge wave was simply set off in his heart. This guy Suyi, who is so holy. I'll be darling, fortunately I didn't release my violent temper against these guys before. Shangpa, who was kneeling on the ground also respectfully, stretched out his hand to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. At this moment, he was extremely grateful that he had suppressed the anger that was uncomfortable because of losing the game. Otherwise, it would really be a dispute with these guys in the 7th universe, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Ahahaha, I didn't expect Big Brother Suyi to mention me to you to Ah Quan. Seeing that King Quan was so kind, Sun Wukong hurried over, squatted down and stretched out his hand to hold King Quan's hand, and then lifted him up. "Oh!" the king shouted happily. Seeing this scene, Suyi smiled. Although he doesn't know what's going on, he just needs to know that the plot is slowly moving forward. The next step is naturally the plot that the original book should have. After notifying the news of the recent conference, he left with the 2 guards. After 3 days, the Earth, on the island of Turtle Immortal. Suyi and others are eating barbecue. For him, when he can relax, he will never suppress himself. Moreover, he, who has always liked liveliness, naturally does not want to barbecue or something by himself. Diaresis, speaking of which, Suyi, how far has your strength grown now? The old man Guixianren drank a few bottles of beer, shook his head and put his hands on Suyi's shoulders. Normally, he would not dare. Now that he is a little drunk, his whole body is a little flirtatious. My strength. It's hard to say. Suyi shook his head and smiled, not because he didn't want to say it, but because it was really hard to say. You said that he only has a combat power of 10 Jing, but he has other transforming strengths. With the growth, he can reach the combat power of 11 or 12 Jing. You said that he only has the combat power of 12 capitals. In fact, he has added a realm of God, and matched it with Zizai Ji Gong. Really need to add some fighting power. So, it's really hard to say. Call out. When a large group of people were communicating, a dazzling light suddenly appeared in midair, followed by a familiar time machine in midair. Yes, a time machine. Suyi raised his head and glanced at it. He was stunned for a moment, and then a thought suddenly flashed into his mind. Now that the plot is going, it seems that there is a problem in the future world, and it is Goku Black and Zamasu who are doing things. Tsuyu put down the food in his hand, and then vacated close to the time machine in midair. He glanced at the glass outside, and saw that Trunks in the future world was lying unconscious in the time machine. What's the matter? At that moment, I felt a familiar aura. After all, it was his own son who had an accident, and after a while, this guy Vegeta came from nowhere. The future world, once again fell into the hands of evil. At this time, Date, who had already taken a super fairy bean, slowly woke up with a sad look on his face, and said solemnly. 120. Black Goku, since he's here, stay. Yeah, it's Trunks of the future world. At this time, Sun Wukong, who also did not know where to teleport back, saw Trunks in the future world, and immediately stepped forward with a smile. Boom. Die. When Date saw Sun Wukong, his face suddenly changed. He suddenly thought that his mother, Elu, died in the hands of the owner of this face. Trunks, what's the matter with you? It's me, don't you know me? Sun Wukong easily avoided this energy cannon of Date, stared at him with wide eyes, and exclaimed. Trunks, what the hell is going on? Vegeta frowned. Undoubtedly, Trunks must have inherited his good genes, so it is absolutely impossible to attack Kakarot for no reason. So, obviously, the enemy of the future world can also be Kakarot. As soon as this idea came out, Vegeta's face changed. He turned his head and glanced at Sun Wukong, and said to Date, the future world disaster you mentioned, shouldn't it be the ghost of Kakarot? As soon as these words came out, not only did Date's face change, but Sun Wukong and the others also showed shocked expressions on their faces. Tsuyu glanced at 187 Vegeta in surprise. To be honest, he was very surprised how he knew. That's right, the disaster in the future world is Uncle Goku. No, it should be another Uncle Goku. Date glanced at Sun Wukong in horror, slowly got up from the capsule bed, gave him an embarrassed salute, and then told everyone about the future disaster. After a while, Vegeta gritted her teeth and roared. Damn it, damn it. Even Sun Wukong was full of anger. Although he doesn't know now that Goku Black is actually his own corpse in the future, he is very unhappy that his face is an evil person. Is that guy an android? The relatively calm Piccolo asked suddenly. I don't know, in a word, his strength can't be more terrifying. After Uncle Suyu's training, my strength is not too weak. However, in the hands of that guy, I can't fight back. Date clenched his teeth with indignation on his face. He thought that his strength was enough to protect his homeland, but he was still so unbearable, which made him not feel uncomfortable. Trunks, calm down. Although Vegeta was furious at the moment, she still calmed down. He is not what he was before, he will be so impulsive. Thinking before you act is the best sentence Tsuyu warned him, and it was also deeply remembered in his heart. Dad, I can't stand it. Mom, in order to buy me time, she died at the hands of that guy. I hate it so much, I hate why I'm so weak. Date burst into tears, he was very sad, beat his chest, and only hated why his strength was so weak. If he is half of Uncle Tsuyu. No, it is 1/10 of the strength, that is definitely the most important person who can easily protect him. Seeing Date like this, Vegeta, who was a father, was also very uncomfortable. He reached out his hand to touch the crying son with his head down, but he retracted his hand halfway and narrowed his eyes. With a cold drink, Trunks. Dad. Date raised his head and looked at Vegeta blankly, with tears all over his face. I don't know if I have taught you the truth in the future, but since you are my son, the blood of my Vegeta flows. Then, I tell you. Vegeta's expression was very cold at this moment, staring at Date, and said solemnly, a man doesn't cry easily, no matter how painful it is, he has to hold it back for me. You have to remember, you are a man now. Then have CFAJ the responsibility of being a man. Quote. Once the big truth was said, Date, Sun Wukong, and Piccolo were all fascinated and moved, and Suyi was embarrassed and couldn't be more embarrassed. What is the reason? Naturally, it was because when Suyi honed Vegeta a few months ago, he hit this guy's self-confidence, and as a result, the 10-year-old man burst into tears on the spot. Suyi was naturally embarrassed about this, so he told him a big truth with a sullen face. And these big truths are exactly the words of Vegeta education. So, it's no wonder that he was really embarrassed to listen to it on the side. After coughing twice, Suyi couldn't help but take a few steps back when he saw Vegeta, father and Sun Wukong's sensational and consoling feelings. However, just after taking a few steps back, Suyi's eyes suddenly narrowed. Someone is coming. Sun Wukong, who was comforting Date, suddenly narrowed his eyes and turned to look at a vortex of airflow in the air. Inside, a man in black clothes, black pants, white shoes, and a red belt around his waist slowly came out. Sun Wukong glanced at the man, and he suddenly gasped. Although he knew from Date that the evil person in the future world looked exactly like him, but when he finally saw it, he couldn't help but be shocked. Sun Wukong. Hey Wukong, who came out of the time-space tunnel, glanced around, and suddenly his eyes were fixed on Sun Wukong, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. It's him, Black Goku. Date suddenly noticed Goku Black in the sky, his face changed, and his emotions that had just been appeased exploded in an instant. Boom! Date directly transformed into Super Saiyan 2, just about to fly into the sky and rush to Black Goku, but was caught by Vegeta, then suppressed him, and silently transformed into a Super Saiyan. He will not be able to avenge the revenge of killing his wife in the future. Then, let him in this era report it. Black Goku right. Vegeta slowly rose to the sky, his eyes were extremely indifferent, looking at Goku Black as if he were looking at a dead man. I can't kill Kakarot, but it's okay to kill someone who looks exactly like him. Quote. Since you're here today, stay here.